Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 296. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I've unlocked my inner Wonder Woman, so says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
Good. Jim, this was actually your episode choice. It was funny. We talked last week about picking 2 and 2 on the title end, and when you and I were casually discussing it, you said, hey, I got a great idea. How about we do a girl power episode? So on this episode, we're going to do Catwoman number 6, Birds of Prey number 6, Wonder Woman number 6, and Supergirl number 6. And we have listener voicemails on the show, so hope you guys enjoy this episode. Next week's episode is going to be Justice League Doom. So get ready for that one. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, this is the end of February, which means they're getting ready for the transition to the brand new books being released from DCB Service. Personally, I love this time of the year because this is when we find out what are the deals going to be. Hardcovers, trades, brand new single issues, what bundles are they doing? DCB Service is constantly offering amazing orders and deals. I want to remind everyone that they are a Comixology digital partner. You earn 5% towards your DCB Service order, so make sure to go to their site, link your account, and get that extra discount on top of their already amazing prices. I want to thank DCBService.com for continuing to support the show. Over at InStockTrades.com, Jim, episode 300, 301, 302 are coming, and we are doing Knightfall. 3 parts. We're going to be doing Knightfall Part 1, the Broken Bat trade paperback, $11.99 at InStockTrades.com. Knightfall Part 2, Who Rules the Night trade paperback, $10.79 at InStockTrades.com. And the final part, Knightfall Part 3, Night's End, $11.99 over at InStockTrades.com. They are your hardcover trade paperback collected edition source, constantly offering amazing discounts. Orders of $50 or more give you free shipping over at InStockTrades.com. Also sponsoring us this episode and sponsoring our contest, DiscountPartySupplies.com. DiscountPartySupplies.com. They have amazing selections of party supplies, including amazing superhero party supplies, which we'll be sharing more at the end of the episode. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
There they are, all alone except for that old character.
Jim, our first chat this episode is going to be Catwoman number 6. Judd Winnick is the writer. Gilliam March is the artist and cover. Tomeu Mori, and I know I butchered that one, on colors. Desi Cienti on letters. Ricky Purdon, assistant editor. Rachel Gluckstern is the editor, and apologies in advance for any name butchery. This is a book I've been really excited to talk about since its initial release, because we jumped on that one very early on in the podcast when we were doing the New 52 because of the controversy surrounding it. And we haven't really had a chance to come back and revisit this book. And it's developed in the way, for me, the way that I hoped it would. It isn't just about like cheesecake and all that. It's really about this woman who has grown up in this very dark world where she's basically lost everything, had to live on the streets. We see why she became a cat burglar. We see the tension of the romance, but if you want to call it that, between her and Batman played out, but it became more very quickly about Catwoman and what that life is like and how different that is and how hard it is for Batman to have feelings for her because it's a contradiction to who he is, and he's trying to, in his own way, provide opportunities for her to go on the right path, and she seems to be, to a certain extent, kind of, you know, she's in love with him, and there's that element there, but it's so complicated. I don't know. I love the elements of this. Like, it's not this clean relationship between the two of them, and you get what the attraction is, but you also get what is keeping them apart. That's really important for me, because if you're going to keep these two apart, you got to show me why. And, woo, does this book do that?
Oh yeah, and I just got to echo just the fact that this isn't just about the sexiness of Catwoman. We had those couple opening issues where they really were showing it, and they were really, just kind of, and that's was part of the controversy. But you're seeing that there's reasoning behind the way she's acting. There's reasoning behind what she's doing. It's that's kind of her way of coping and dealing with the pain she's had throughout her life, and all these other just echoes on top of compiling of just problems and issues and whatnot that she's been dealing with. And that for me was something that made going back through and rereading the beginning issues a lot, enjoyed it even more. And I enjoyed it the first time through, but just that going back through it again one more time, and you really see and you really get an understanding that she is, a victim of society, but she is also a thief, so you can't completely blame it on that. But there's an understanding why she's doing what she's doing and where she's coming from, and there's even some sympathy that I have towards her because I know what a rough life she's led. And she's a really cool character, and just beyond the outward neatness of her, there is some behind the page thinking that goes along with her.
It reminds me a lot of what I liked about the series years ago. And I like the evolution of the character over time, and there's room to evolve this character, too. I like the sense of adventure that's there, too, but it's a wicked adventure that fits a criminal. And there's something to that. She feels very, very different, and I like it. I mean, it's something that's really interesting about the character. I also like that her allegiances are ones where they're people she's often close to, like the one who we saw die in previous issues. But, she feels guilt over the fact that the person died because of the association with her. Then now she's starting new relationships, new avenues of trust, but she doesn't really want that. She wants to be the loner because she doesn't want to deal with the responsibility of having friends. And also, the problem of trust in her world is you're dealing with thievery, big-time money. And there's greed that's associated with that. Who can you trust? Who will turn her in? Who will turn on her for financial gain? So this is the world that she lives in. How do you ever really trust anyone in her world? I love that undertone and undercurrent is there. And that affects also her interpersonal relationships. That's why the relationship with Batman, who also has major trust issues, is so volatile. So I like how that has come into play with all this. So their dance is more than something that's just naughty. There is a deep psychological root to it that I find very, very interesting. And that's what I was hoping. I was hoping what we saw in those initial issues was a setup for something more, something deeper, and something richer. And I feel we've gotten that with this book. I do hope that, like, some people who were in an uproar about it, a lot of the reasons that I saw the uproar are things that, if you take a look at the direction the title has gone in, have been dealt with. So I'm hoping some of those people who were very upset at first gave the book a chance, because I admit it, I was shocked by the ending scene. I'm like, I don't know that it needed to go that route. And I've got to say, I'm completely beyond that now. Like, it's isolated to one page, one panel, and I said that back in the time. I'm like, I'm not going to let one page dissuade me from this title. And that one page, when you take a look at it, how it all played out now, especially sequences in issue 6 with the two of them together, I'm like, oh gosh, like that. There's a payoff here that comes from that scene. And what that does to Bruce. And I really like that. I think there's a psychological element that's being explored here that's just a little bit different. I love that, this opening sequence. Let's kick right into issue 6, because I think it's a beautiful book. And one of the things that I've really liked is, you see these sequences where dirty cops have gotten a hold of her. And this is something we know to be true about Gotham. There's real good, tried-and-true police officers. And I think the best of the best in the police in Gotham are the ones I have the highest respect for, because it's so easy in Gotham to, get a little extra green on the side. You know what I mean? And in this world, for somebody to be the straight and narrow, to really believe in their calling and that, upholding the law and trying to be a good person in this world is worth it. I love that, there's something about the police in Gotham that there's some guys who still stand. Like, we see a guy in this issue who's standing tried and true. And when, honestly, it'd be easier just to turn and walk away.
It's funny. I can always tell when you're really passionate about a title.
Because I won't shut up.
I got to fight to get a comment in.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. I agree with you on the passion on the issue. So a lot of the stuff you're saying, I'm like, hoorah. I agree. I concur. But I'm just laughing because you're like going and going like, Sean, let me jump in here.
Well, it is one of the things, though, like, for me, one of the things I really enjoy about this book is not just Selina. And I think that's really important in a solo title. I think it's forgotten sometimes in solo books. The solo books that, to me, tend to, like, kind of waver in the middle of the stack range or even lower than that are books where there hasn't developed beyond a cool solo character a cast of characters and events around that person that are interesting and make the world feel three-dimensional. This book feels very three-dimensional, more and more with each issue. There's more going on here than just Selina. And that's what I like. Go ahead.
Yeah, big time. And you brushed on it a little bit, just about the look of this book is just, this is a great art writing team combo. This is, really good where the art is really accenting the story being told. It's, a couple of the stuff that really catch me is on the artist side, it's especially around the eyes. In all the characters, especially Selina, you really get to see what's going on. There's a lot of emotion being played through. But as it goes through, even like, with the crooked cops, with the one honest cop, you see this intensity in their face. You see it right around the eyes. This is something that I really love seeing, and just it was something that caught me, and it. Second, third read-throughs, I'm really just physically drawn into, experiencing the book that way. And I was like, wow, this is some beautiful work here. And this is, and actually it's funny because this is, kind of I've enjoyed his work before, but I never really noticed just how much I enjoyed it until like these most recent issues with Catwoman. I always said, oh yeah, he's a really good artist. Yeah, I like his stuff, but it was something about this, with just the pure emotional expression that I'm getting just from the artwork.
Sometimes the fun of a solo title is really getting to explore the psychological nature of the character. Because with Selina, she'll a lot of times play dumb, play the helpless victim, in order to psychologically come up with an advantage she can take. That split second. She is a cat burglar. She escapes. Her whole world is involved with split-second choices. Sometimes it's luck. Just plain, why does the cat have 9 lives? Because she narrowly escapes how many times, from certain situations that she really shouldn't be able to. She finds a way to take an advantage. She finds a way to slip through. I like that her wins aren't clean. It's sometimes it is just survival. That's something that's interesting. And she's a villain, and you should get that kind of feel. There's also some kind of perverse pleasure for her in what she does. Like, she can't give it up. There's still that thrill of the hunt, the chase. We've got a younger Selina who hasn't, in the previous series, this is a Selina who went through all this before and who had grown to the point where she'd had some maturity. You know what I mean? And this one is a much younger Selina who is still right in the midst of the game. And there's something neat about going back and exploring this Selina now and seeing her in a modern-day world. That's where it's fun, because they've modernized her. She's very today. She's using today's tech. And there's still kind of a weird, passion to what she does that, it's edgy and different, but it's, again, you say it before, it's not edgy just to be edgy, which there was that danger we talked about in that first issue. Is this going that route, or is there more to the story? And by now, by issue 6, we've really seen some really strong development that the things that they've been doing with her in this series have depth to them. This is really an in-depth exploration of a cat burglar that I'm really digging. It separates her from a lot of the other female characters that are being explored in the DC universe. And that's I wouldn't call her an anti-hero in this book. She's really a villain.
Yeah, she's definitely, well, Yeah, she's definitely a villain. She's definitely a thief. See, I call her a thief more than a villain.
Okay.
And the difference between a thief and a villain to me is a thief is just after the score. A thief, it's just after the business. They're not out to hurt people. They're not out to cause bodily harm or ruin somebody. Whereas a villain is out to hurt people. A villain's out to, yes, they want power, yes, they want money, but in the process, they want to hurt some people. They want to enjoy themselves, and they have that sick perversion on what is fun to them. So for me, she's not a hero, but she's not a villain. She's a thief. Very simple, very plain, and it's boom. That's what she is. And to be honest, I like that about her. I like the fact that this is her character, but there is a little bit more behind her. It's not just, ooh, I see something pretty, I'm going to take it. Or I don't have money, I'm going to steal it from this person because they have a lot of it. No, there is a little bit behind why she's doing it. There is that psychological side of her. But I love her cunning. I love how she, the beginning of this, she's kind of trying to play the cops. They weren't falling for it. And then when Van Gogh steps in, she kind of takes a couple shots to the, face, gets knocked down, draws her in for the strike, and, rips off the ear. I was like, that whole play out, everything, I was like, oh my God, she's so setting her up. And I knew it was coming, but I didn't know exactly what she was going to do. I knew it was a giant setup. She was playing possum. She's pulling her in. That, for me, was just a great, great moment.
Do you think Batman is drawn to her darkness? Like, he sees a path that he could have gone down because, it was when his parents died, it sent him into a world of darkness that he never really escaped from. It's just he chooses a different outlet for it. He chooses to redeem Gotham, to try and save Gotham, because of the upbringing from his parents. Whereas Selina, because of her upbringing and everything that happened with her and being on the streets the way that she is, her darkness has led her down this path. But the one thing he recognizes from her is she does have a line. And I think he tries to keep her from crossing it because she comes really close in this series many times. Out of the need for revenge, especially for what happened to her friend, and and especially then with the money and everything, he's trying to keep her from going too far. I guess this had some validity to your comment before about her being a thief versus a villain. I see your distinction. There's definitely something different to her than the Penguin or the Joker, because you're right. She's not out to just hurt people unless they've hurt her and those close to her. And even more, I think those close to her even more so than herself. She's out for revenge a lot of times. And there's something I think that Batman can relate to that. Not condone, but relate, and it's why he's trying to protect her, almost like, he sees the opportunity to redeem her as well. Maybe the way he's trying to redeem the darkness in Gotham. I don't know. This series has gotten very rich for me in a lot of the undertones, the stuff that's not as in your face that's going on behind the events, and that's something that I really like. It's become very deep to me, and I'm like, whoa! I was so hoping that this would happen, and it has. And this is, to me, what I love. This is vintage Catwoman. And there's a lot of different routes Catwoman has gone over the years. The Brubaker series, the one that went all the way through with Will Pfeiffer and all that, it was a Catwoman that was older and had been through like a path of redemption already. But this is like a dark edge to the fun-loving Catwoman in the Balance series beforehand that I thought was really great. I loved that. So this is something, it's new. It is exploring new territory. It's a darker territory than that. Yet Catwoman's not unrecognizable here. If anything, this is what Catwoman would be like in a today world. And she hasn't lost that thing that makes her uniquely Selina. I'm a bat junkie. This is why. So you're going to hear a lot of diarrhea of the mouth from a character like this. Honestly, because when it's done right, like this series has gotten it, it's a fun book. It's really, really a fun book, and I'm glad this series has shown it's got legs and more depth to it. This is definitely not, as you can tell, this is not a middle of the stack book for me. Not at all.
I was a little confused by that. Thanks for clarifying.
Well,
I wasn't exactly sure where you stood on this. I was like, hey, does Sean like this or not? I'm a little bit confused on that.
I agree with you. I love the whole
funny,
Van Gogh.
As you're talking, I'm sitting here nodding my head like an idiot going, yeah. I'm like, okay, Jim, speak, because it's weird because when this first came out, I was like, okay, I understand. I was seeing, some of what could happen, where it could go, but there was a little bit of concern about, edgy for edgy. It was concerned about, okay, are they just trying to make this, just trying to sex it up, or is there going to be something else behind this? And I'm a fan of Judd Winnick. I like his writing style. I trust that he's going to, take it, and I was trusting where it was going. I was really glad that, I kind of put faith in the creative team. And this is a title that this kept growing leaps and leaps and bounds every issue. And that's why when we started talking about what titles to do, this was one of the first ones I really wanted to talk about, because one, we hadn't talked about it, but two, there's some really cool stuff going on here. And it was funny because I was finding myself connecting to her and connecting to where she was going and what she's dealing with. And she and I are just so polar of opposites of type of characters and types of personality, but I still am able to understand where she's coming from, what she's doing, and why she's doing it. And that to me is just the power of the creative team behind this.
Polar opposites, yet you have the same dress sense, which is surprising to me. But
I do not wear skin-tight leather.
Thank God.
And I will never wear skin-tight leather.
I love the whole Van Gogh thing, and but one of the things I really want to jump back to that sequence really quick and talk about. You talked before about facial expressions, also body language is something that I've really enjoyed about the art in this series, because you've got a Selina, like I talked about earlier, looks very timid, very, the wide-eyed wonder, and kind of all that stuff lures you into thinking she's weak and helpless. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she lashes out with this violent rage. When she tore that ear off, it wasn't just taking the ear. The ear was the first piece to her trying to take advantage of a situation that she's fighting a meta. She's fighting a meta while she's cuffed.
Yeah.
And there's a huge distinction there. And I loved how that all played out. And I think Selina totally knew in that moment, this is my last-ditch effort. Like, this is going to be it. I'm going to die here. So I have this desperate chance to try and take advantage of a situation. And if I'm going down, she's going to remember she was there with me.
Yeah. And
it really, if the police officer hadn't come in at that moment, wow.
Yeah, she was dead. And this was I'm going down, I'm going to take a piece of you with me. And I loved that. Again, though probably, I'll say, in Selina's mind, she's thinking, okay, hit, strike, move. And she's thinking, probably trying to think, I do this, I can make a break for it. I can get past her. I can get out of here. She wasn't probably thinking, okay, today's a good day to die. And that's something that, you really need to see. And I got to believe that someone with her training, with her experience, would do that. It's like the Jackie Chan fighting style. You got to keep scrambling, stick and move. You don't have high power, but you have speed, you have accuracy, you have just the discipline, the never-ending endurance, just the multiple stuff that she's got going for her. She's playing up to her strengths. As you said, she lured her in, and then bam, 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 couple quick strikes. Unfortunately, she is up against the meta who caught her and was getting ready to kill her if the cop hadn't stepped in. So, but I love seeing the fact that she's fighting and she kept scrambling, and she wasn't saying she wasn't giving up. She wasn't just saying, okay, I'm going to die today. Let me just lay down and end it.
Well, don't get me wrong. I wasn't saying that she was going to, she was giving it all up or anything like that. My thing is, though, this Selina, and any Selina, I think, is really aware of the situation that she's in. She was taking this threat incredibly seriously. And I think she was recognizing that I've got to make one-ditch move here or else that is it. And I think that she really knew that there was a really strong possibility she was not making out of this situation alive. She even alludes to that in her dialogue earlier. So this is really her chance to, let me try to take advantage of the situation. It's what I was talking about earlier. What I like about her is it's the narrow escapes. This is a woman who's not a meta. She doesn't have the benefit of having the law on her side, or really very many other people. She's, unlike Batman, where he's got unlimited resources, and he's got Alfred and the Robin and Batgirl and all these other people that Nightwing, who've been associated with him over the years and helped him. She doesn't have that. She's been lucky that Batman's kind of stepping in and helping her out here and there, especially with the fact that nobody really knows who she is, which I thought was brilliant. You know, you've put this girl completely under the radar now. It explains why people don't automatically hone in on her in this day and age where you've got the internet and the opportunity to really like do some background information. How do you keep yourself off of? She's managed to, because of Bruce, not have a digital footprint.
Yeah, she's got nothing out there, and I love that. Because you know she's been busted before, and he was able to go in, completely clean out the record. And, again, it makes you wonder, why would Bruce do this stuff for? What's he going? What's his motivation behind it? Part of the thing I always think about, and especially lately I've been with this series, is Bruce has that white knight syndrome. He wants to be the guy who rides in and saves the day. He wants to be that the guy who saves the damsel in distress, and he sees in her that female who just needs his protection, who needs his help, even though she'll never admit, yes, I need your help. And I think it's that whole combination of where he knows she needs him, but she'll never ask for it, that she just spurns him on and keeps him motivated and keeps pushing him here. And
you just described
where they're actually getting physical.
Jim, you're describing Gotham,
right?
That's what I'm saying. She's the personification of Gotham. That's what it is. What keeps driving him, and I don't know that he can put his finger on it, but that's really what it is. He sees in her everything he sees in Gotham. He sees a good in her. He sees something worth saving in her. Yet, he also sees the hopelessness there as well. How dark the situation really is as well. He has to believe in redemption. I don't know if it's as simple as the whole white knight thing. I think there's a certain element of that analogy that's true. But I think it's not just about the damsel in distress, because I don't know that he totally views her as a damsel in distress, unless you consider that how he views Gotham. To me, there's a lot more of a relationship with what he sees with Gotham, and it's redemption. Is there a redemption for her? Can he redeem her? Can he redeem Gotham? He's trying to do that. He's trying to force that so much. I think this really echoes so much of what he's trying to do as Bruce Wayne when he's out of the cowl with rebuilding Gotham right now. It really is he's trying to force change. And it's something that I think he's trying to do with her, too, is trying to push her to take opportunities that he's giving her. Yeah. And to the point where he's telling her, I'm giving you as much of this as I can. You've got to take this. And I think it's frustrating him that in his mind, she's not seeing it.
Oh, the big time. And I love seeing just this couple pages where it's very limited dialogue, very little inner dialogue, where you're seeing them going at it and just the physical balance back and forth. And finally, Bruce is like, this is over. And he's just flat out. You can see the rage. You can see just the fire in him. And I loved how this whole thing, it was a couple pages where, you go from this heavy dialogue, inner dialogue, everything going on with Selina, and then with the dance between the two of them. By the end, that final page, was just boom, 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 bam. Bruce puts a stop to it. I love just that coming together.
Well, you know what it is, and the coming together is correct. This is the payoff for the stuff we saw before. It wasn't just shock value. This is where, if you didn't have those sequences with the two of them before, that statement where she sits there and goes, as long as we keep having, when she goes there with him saying, hey, we've been together, as long as we keep, being physically together, I'm assuming I'm buying some time with you. That was the thing for him that just really set him over the edge. And, I think she deep down knows that wasn't what that was all about. Yet, that is the thing between the two of them. There are differences between the two of them. Unless one of them bends, unless one of them gives into the other's world, they're going to always have this. And you see in this moment, this pivotal moment, what the real problem is with them ever moving forward. I hope that at some point in time, these two wind up together. I loved seeing it in Hush when they wound up together. That's something that's no longer existent, though. That didn't happen. Not this way. And it's a tragedy for them, because I root for the two of them in many ways the same way I root for Lois and Clark. Very different relationship, though, and a lot more tragic and a lot harder to see these two ever finding that together. So I geeked out as a kid seeing that Batman and Catwoman on Earth 2 wound up marrying and having a child in Huntress. over there. That was something that was cool to see. But I never took that as being gospel that would be what would happen on our world, on the world that came afterwards. So, it's fun to see this exploration from a very, very different way now. And, it's the same thing. These worlds can keep, being quote unquote rebooted or whatever. But if you understand characters like you understand Selina and Bruce, you can tell stories like this where it just takes it to a whole new place, yet at its core, it's classic Batman and Catwoman. It's, the tragic relationship, the love that you truly believe could go somewhere that, will it ever? I don't know. I don't know. That was those moments, those powerful moments there where I'm just sitting, you see him standing there looking down. I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything that I was ever concerned about from one page and one panel was totally thrown out the window because there was a payoff. There was a reason. That was the reason. And that was the interesting part with the whole thing for me. Then her friend, being at the end was that epilogue sequence I thought was great because you've seen her. She's lost Batman now.
Yeah.
And in this moment, we all know that Bruce is still there for her and that, these two will wind up dancing a dance again. But this is the point where I'm like, they've really shown us how we had Batman such a pivotal part of this book. Now you see why she's going to move on alone without him, at least for a while. And why she needs a new person, a new fence. And why she would now totally embrace her life of thievery and use that as a way to survive. And it all makes sense now. You know what I mean? And that's something that I think is just really great about the development of this series is, I didn't want this to be every single issue you have Batman guest appearances. I want it to be about Catwoman. And Batman showing up for pivotal reasons like we've seen here is great. I geek out over that because I love that character. But this is now, I'm like, this is nitty-gritty, what I want to get to. Let's keep going. More Selina stories. Let's go from there. And you bring Batman in the future. I want to see him back again and all that. But, I want to see her evolve now due to these events. And
Yeah, I am a little worried about Gwen. Because, Lola didn't fare so well, being Catwoman's fence. So she could have the red shirt syndrome and or Friends of Tim Drake syndrome. And that's something I hope doesn't happen. Granted, if they tell a cool story behind the death, I'll be okay with it, but I really do hope the character's around for a little bit.
Well, here's my question. How do we know that she's trustworthy?
We don't yet, because she in herself is also a thief.
Right.
So it's, you kind of have that whole, is there honor among thieves? Is there a code? Will there be a double cross? It's, with Lola, you knew she wasn't going to double cross Selina. But new person coming in, you don't know. Yeah, they have a past, yeah, they have a history, but you never know what's going to happen. Someone may make her an offer she can't refuse.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. This is a fun book. This is Winnick at his best. When he does this is Judd Winnick. This is the stuff that I really like from him when he does this with characters. And when he gets to the core of a character like this and goes edgy, but it is these characters who you're like, okay, I get this. I get what he's doing with this character. This is the kind of stuff that I really like from him.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Our next discussion will be on Birds of Prey number 6. The writer is Dwayne Straczynski. Art by Javier Pena. Colors by June Chung. Letterer Carlos Mangua. With cover by Jesus Saez and June Chung. And assistant editor Katie Kubert with editor Bobby Chase.
I was going to correct you on Dwayne's last name. I'm not sure how to pronounce it either, though. It's Straczynski. I think it's Swier. And I'm going to admit I don't know if I'm right or wrong. So it's funny how I really have. This book has been one of those books for me. I don't know if you're in the same place. I think I was such a huge fan of Birds of Prey before. I've been really hard on this book in the sense that I'm like, I want to see my birds and all that. I walked in with a heavy stigma for this book. And I've grown to really like it. You know what? As soon as I got past it's not Gail Simone's birds and really tried to read this book for itself and for what this creator's trying to do with it, I've really started to like it. I don't look at it as a replacement for what was going on with Zinda and Huntress and Barbara and, the whole team before. And Black Canary, I'm leaving off Black Canary. How do I leave out Black Canary? But also Savant and Creo and all that. There was a whole cast, and that run is, to me, it's so in its own contained universe in the way that it was crafted that I had to separate that and say that run ended, and that's a nice contained piece, and really look at this at face value for what it is, and that we're dealing with a much younger Black Canary who's, there's still a mystery to exactly what is going on with her. And how she got accused of the things she got accused of. Because she's been accused of murder, right?
Yeah, she's a wanted individual. She's a fugitive. And it's kind of curious. I love the fact that they are giving us little tastes of everybody and they're slowly playing it out, but they're not doing it at risk of the story, at the detriment to the actual ongoing adventure that we're getting from the birds. And it's funny because as you're talking about how you had this whole preconceived notion and how you came in with heavy baggage, I'm completely agreeing with you. And it was something, and that was actually keeping me from really sitting down and enjoying this title as much as I should have been. Because for me, one of the great things about the Gale's run on Birds was I didn't look at it as a female superhero team. I looked at it as a superhero team where the members were female. So when they had males that came into it, it never threw me off the vibe, never threw me off, what I was getting, because they were a team. They were a unit, and they were, something special in their own rights. And when I first started reading this, I was looking at it, okay, this isn't the same Birds. This is a female superhero team. And it was kind of something, it was causing me to skip beats and just not enjoy it to its fullest. And it was, again, this was a read-through starting 1 through, I think it was around, 4 or 5, when I really started going, okay, from beginning to end to whatever the current issue, and I just read them, boom, 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 back to back, and I started seeing, okay, this has a really cool team dynamic. It's still growing, it's still developing, because you got these new members coming in, you got people who don't completely trust each other, so you've got that little quirk in the team, but you do have a team, and especially issue 6 really showed the team strength, really showed team dynamic with a lot of these 1-2 combos that they're pulling, and I really enjoyed that.
One of the things I want to say, too, is I kind of stumbling over at the beginning talking about what my journey was with this title. Because I think, first of all, it's won me over. I'm into this book. So I do want to clarify that and make sure that I'm being real clear on it, because this is a book that, I was expecting, I don't know that it was going to win me over, because I liked so much of what came before. What's winning me over about this, and this is something that actually it's a nod to what I like about Gail Simone. When Gail Simone comes onto a book, she doesn't try to be somebody else. She takes over and she tells a story the way Gail Simone does. And there's distinctive qualities to a Gail Simone writing that I really, really enjoy. And there's that balance that I've always mentioned with her. What I like about this book is it's not trying to be Gail Simone light. This is a book that it's its own unique interpretation of the Birds of Prey concept without trying to be somebody that came before it. I like the team. I'm starting to really like Starling.
Yeah.
I'm really liking Dinah. Now that I've accepted that it's a younger Dinah, and I'm seeing her as not the same Dinah that had gone through so much of we'd seen before in Birds of Prey with her, because that's a real key for me. I've got to believe that this is a person who hasn't been there, and yet there's those qualities where I could see her eventually reaching that point, if that makes sense. Those qualities are there for me with her now. Because she's a character I really, really care about, and I want to see her do well. I want to see her spotlighted in a series, and it's working here. I love her in this book now. Younger version of her. We're seeing her in years earlier, which that was something I needed. I don't know if you needed to wrap your head around it. I really needed to wrap my head around that, because I loved her progression before. So that being gone is something that it's bittersweet for me. But I like her. I dig her. Go ahead.
I never had a progression of Dinah. I came in at the end of Dinah. I came in with the experienced veteran who's been around, who knows what she's doing, who knows how to handle a crisis or two. So for me, going back to the early Dinah, it was a little bit weird getting my hands on, but then as with everything with the New 52, I'm enjoying the fact that I am getting these stories that I never was exposed to. I'm getting these younger versions of these heroes. I'm seeing them learn from their mistakes. I'm seeing them develop. And that was when I had that kind of that realization with the New 52, that was part of my realization with Birds of Prey, what I was getting out of this, what was the strength of the book, what was the factors that, should really make me say, hey, Jim, don't be an idiot, enjoy this. You're being given a great gift here. Sit back and enjoy the gift. And I was like, yeah, this is some neat stuff going on. And I tell you, Katana's another one. Crazy women are awesome, and she is just a fabulous character. And it's funny. I want to know if she's actually is crazy, or if she actually hears the voices, or if he's actually in the blade, or what's going on. But on the other hand, I kind of don't want to know. I want that mystery just to remain out there for a little while.
I'm convinced she's not crazy. I'm convinced she's really hearing voices. I am. I totally believe it. The more the series goes on, it's funny. I'm really getting into these characters. I'm speculating on them. And I could be totally wrong, sure. I'm saying this is speculation because that hasn't been defined yet. But I love that I'm starting to get passionate enough that I'm starting to want to defend her.
Yeah.
Start saying, no, she's not crazy. And they're going to eventually see.
Yeah. She just hears voices. That's not crazy.
No, but what if the voices really are coming from the sword? Then it's not coming from her head. It's coming from something mystical, something more than that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm defending. It's that sword. It's not. It's not her. Now, if she's hearing them in her head, that's a whole different ball game. But it really is coming from the sword, which adds a whole little element. And Poison Ivy, love her in this book. This is the distinction. I think this is working so much more for me because we're not trying to. You're not throwing Huntress in right now. You're not throwing Zinda in right now, and trying to have them be something they're not. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's taking characters like I think Black Canary is our one character who is, and obviously Batgirl, who's being very well defined in her own solo title. I think you need those two together. Really important part. I'm not saying I would never want Huntress in this book. I don't mean it that way. It's just that right now, what I'm liking is we're trying to make this title distinctive from what has come before. Not trying to be a writer that we're not. We're trying to be our own writer with our own character ideas, our own direction for it. And that's what's grabbing me. This book's developing an identity of its own. And I think it's a concept that really is needed at DC. It's a strong female team. It's a strong squad of characters. It's unique. Everybody's unique. You and I talked about things like Justice League Dark and what we're liking about titles like that. This is in that category. I'm really liking the fact that it just feels different. And Birds of Prey in its genesis and its core, right from when Chuck Dixon did it, when it came out, it was so drastically different. And the Chuck Dixon run, for anybody who's read that will agree, that was very distinctive from the runs that came afterwards on that book. And I think that's really important with this title, that if you're going to make a mark with the Birds of Prey concept, you got to have your own identity to the book and what you're doing with it. And this is working here for me. 6 issues in, I want to see where it's going to go. Is it going to be one of those runs where I'm going to go afterwards, wow, this was another definitive run on Birds? I don't know. It's too soon to tell on that type of thing. But I'm liking that I see potential in this run. There's something about this book. And I think I'm seeing the potential because it's something, we're not bringing in all the, this person's not trying to understand Savant in a way that, Gail Simone did. Although I'm still head scratching over what's being done with him.
Yeah, I'm wondering about him. But
he hasn't translated well into the New 52 for me yet.
I'm going to give it time. We'll see how he plays it out and what happens with him. So he's a character that I'm not throwing completely out yet, and just got to wait and see. But
I want to see Savant rebirth.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only one, but I want to see it.
Yeah. One of the things you commented on with Poison Ivy, she's a character that I've always enjoyed. The character, and I like when they have her, kind of, dance the line. The Siren series that she was in with Catwoman and Harley Quinn was just a great series, and just you kind of get that understanding who she is. And this team, having her on it, has been just one of those. I was very happy when they introduced her, and every time they're using her, I still get that same Poison Ivy feel to her. And it's again, it's part of my increased appreciation for what I currently have in this title.
I like Choke, the concept of the villain Choke. This idea that these were people that were controlled. I love that this all ties into stuff that we saw earlier when they were being hunted down. And that these are people that have no memory. They're the ultimate sleeper agents.
Yeah, and it's, again, usage of modern media. Mm-hmm. And, it's funny. I've got a lot of guys that I work with. They're on the older side of things, and they're not completely comfortable with the computers and whatnot. And a lot of them do have the Big Brother feelings and the Big Brother fears. And I gotta, it's, so it's kind of funny seeing this actually happen, kind of stuff that they would be naturally afraid of, and that they would have, what's going to happen with all this computer stuff. Hey, mind control. And granted, it couldn't really happen in present day age, but it's something that isn't so far-fetched, if you just tweak up the tech just a little bit. What we currently have out there, tweak it a notch or two, and you're getting a realistic storyline in how it's being presented, how it's playing out, and just the little nuances behind the story was something that I really enjoyed.
You know what's funny I'm finding in the New 52? A lot of the costume resistance that I had early on, especially like, Dinah's costume change and stuff like that, now I'm finding to be a strength. And let me explain why. It's helping me separate this from the continuity that came before. It's as opposed to if she was in the exact same suit she was in like Gail Simone's run, for example. Because I really liked that suit. I liked that look. I liked, the variation that they did with the character. It fit kind of the whole combat direction she went with her, going into the martial arts and that back, because I loved that exploration. It's one of my favorite things from the old Birds of Prey. The progression that I was talking about, a lot of the progression that I really appreciated with Dinah Lance happened in Birds of Prey. And it was the stuff that we saw from Chuck Dixon, certainly when Gail took over and really started exploring her as a martial artist and giving that background. I'm a big fan of that stuff. That was a lot of the sequences we talked about with where it felt like an action movie, and there's a lot of cinematography in what was going on there. And every panel had emotion and a reason, and that was stuff that I really dug. I'm liking that when we see the new costume with this one, it's giving me the idea, okay, this is a younger Dinah Lance, and this is someone who hasn't gone through that. And yet there is that, like you said, that tech, that squad mentality. There's, without Oracle, now you've got Batgirl, who's a part of this, who's got those skills too, but Starling also compensates for a lot of that too. Where Batgirl didn't really take the Oracle route for as long as we'd seen, we've got a Starling who's filling a very different role, a mystery to Starling. That is something that I'm really liking, because I love Starling. I know I said it earlier, I'm really starting to like this character quite a bit. This is a great example. Add a new character, bring in somebody who's, I don't know, where she came from. I don't think there's any previous history with her. I'm really liking her being brought in as a character, because she plays a great foil for everybody else. She's that playoff board. Kind of gets along with Poison Ivy, kind of doesn't, and was really unhappy when Black Canary brought her in, which is something that is real interesting. Also, her relationship with Katana was the same thing. Not too cool with it at first either. Got some girl talking to a sword.
Yeah, crazy woman talking to a sword.
Yeah.
She's standing behind me, isn't she? Yep.
But I could see also Batgirl and her butting heads. The glue that's holding this team together really is Dinah Lance. She's the central foundation piece. Really important to Birds of Prey and to the concept moving forward to have her in that role. She is the one. I don't even know if she knows it yet, but she will, because I think it's just going to end up going that way. And I love that about this series. There's something to be said about it. I liked when we kind of glossed over at the beginning. I liked that whole opening sequence where the pickpocketing happened.
Yeah. Well, again, a nice little usage of approaching in a different way. You had to trigger the guy. You had to get him going. Well, here's a great way to trigger him: take away his connection. And they knew that he would have to reach out to the hive. He knew he'd have to reach out to them, and even whether it's subconsciously or consciously, he knew they had to go out there. It was a great triggering, a great way to go about it. I was really happy seeing how that played out, because at first I was like, okay, why are they doing it? What's going on? And then just everything played out. Everything had its role. And then we later learned that they're going through finding all these innocents, healing them, fixing them, making sure they don't become human bombs and explode. And again, it's that hero mentality. Rule number one is protect the innocent. They're going about protecting the innocent. Yeah, they're trying to find a path to the big bad, but along the way, they got to make sure they protect the innocent. They save these innocent victims. I love that.
I love the way Dinah's gloves are crafted, to the forearm area.
Yeah.
With that padding, and you can even see the elbow pads and stuff. Very fitting for a martial artist. Showing that that's something we haven't given up on. These would be things when somebody's throwing kicks and somebody's throwing punches and she's dodging them with her arms. That extra armoring there, that extra protection there would be where you would, buffer up, because she'd be doing a lot of not just throwing punches herself, but also deflecting. And I like that that was an attention to detail that I really have grown to appreciate. When I got past my own kind of, it's not the old costume, I started looking and appreciating. I'm like, wow, okay, this is really taking, if you're going to redo her costume, this is taking into consideration a lot of what's at the core of what really makes her character cool.
Yeah. Well, part of padding is protecting them while they're throwing the punch.
Sure.
And that was something I really like seeing, the forearm stuff, because a lot of modern fighting styles are forearm shimmies, elbow smashes, punches, knees, kicks. It's not just your traditional open hand karate chop to the vital organs. There's you got to get in there and you got to get ugly. And these pads, the costume, the functionality behind it. It's a definite, realistic, approach to the costume. And we're seeing it throughout the new 52. It's something I'm digging with the new costume designs, is where they're taking into effect what are regular everyday people gonna need if you're gonna be a superhero. Well, you're gonna need reinforced hands. You're gonna need the reinforced forearms and knee pads. You're gonna need some little bit of extra protection here and there. I like seeing that.
Who do you think Choke is? I have my own assumption. I'll tell you who I think it is.
I was wondering if it's Jervis Tetch, Mad Hatter. That's what I was wondering. But I don't know. I don't know enough about him to know if that's his style. But that was the first kind of, the kind of first thought that popped in my head was him.
That's interesting. See, if that's a good possibility. I actually wasn't thinking that route, so I'm going to throw out that that's not a bad. Well, especially Carrion Crow sat on an oak to bed, says sleepy head. Yeah. So, wow. I like that idea. It could be Jervis Tetch. I was thinking if it wasn't Tetch, the other possibility I was thinking in that one panel where they've got Trust Your Team, Black Canary, a Carrion Crow sat on an oak. Yeah. There's the girl with the knife who's not saying anything. There's only one in that panel who's not saying anything. And if it's not Tetch, I'm wondering if it's her. Every single other person in that panel is saying something. Everyone has a balloon, except for her. The one in red.
Yeah, I see. Well, the only thing is, the panel right above that...
Look at the hair, it's different. I thought that might be her, too. I looked at the hairstyle, it's shorter, isn't it? It doesn't look like the same hairstyle.
Okay, because that's who I thought that was, but...
Look at the front of her hair. I don't know that that's her. It could be. Because I looked at that too. That's why I have a response to that. But I'm looking at that, and if you look at it looks like her hair's parted in the middle on the top. Yeah, this one who's down there does not look like that's what's going on with her.
Right. And the one who's the partial panel up top, her glasses look a little bit flatter, a little bit more squared off than the one who's not talking. So, yeah, the one with the knife could definitely, be, Choke.
Because I was wondering if Dinah saw that and picked up on that, and maybe that was what it was. I don't know. We'll find out. Because I wasn't thinking the Mad Hatter, but when you said that, I was like, wow, it is very musical. It does fit him. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're right on the Mad Hatter one. I'm part of me's thinking that girl. Another part of me, you have me thinking Mad Hatter. So I don't know. I like that. I'm into like figuring out who. this could potentially be. This is a book that really, once I got past my own stigmas I was putting on it, I'm really starting to dig again. I'm really into, and see, Birds of Prey is really a concept to me that's very, very important. Because I've always liked the fact that I like different teams. I like different types of book. I like different styles of characters. You know, tell me something new. Tell me stories you can't tell me anywhere else. Birds of Prey has always filled a unique storytelling opportunity. And you need that. You know, DC's a universe. There's lots of different types of characters. I've liked that about the New 52, that they keep throwing out new concepts and trying. I'm into the idea of what's coming in the second wave. There's certain characters that are being canceled that I'm glad are winding up, like Mr. Terrific's winding up on the Justice League. So I'm excited to see him wind up elsewhere. I want to see other characters launched in like a third wave. You know, there's a lot of, I want to see new characters. I want to see other characters that haven't been spotlighted. I think that's really, really important in this universe to show us that it's made up of a whole bunch of different types of characters. And Birds fits a certain role for me, a certain place for me. And I'm glad we're doing like this Girl Power Week, because it wasn't really intentional to go this way. We were just going to pick 2 books each, and you suggested that. And it's funny how the titles, I'm like, wow, they couldn't be more different. They really couldn't from each other. So I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this book.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro claw for carving through metal doors.
Jim, our next book is going to be Supergirl number 6. Michael Green and Mike Johnson are the writers. Mahmoud Asrar is the artist. Dave McCaig is the colorist. Rob Lay letterer. Asrar and McCaig cover. Will Moss editor. Matt Idelson group editor. And I apologize to the artist. I know I butchered the last name, because I'm really digging the styling of this book. Supergirl was a book that I was worried about in the New 52, only because, and we've touched on this before, especially when we were going through our exploration of the New 52, I was really worried that we're going to turn Kara back into that unlikable character. I liked that progression. I liked seeing her be this brat that turned into a hero, but I think what Gates and Eigel did, really, they just defined that transition. You need to tell me something new, or, you know, really define her in a different way. I didn't want her to go back to being unlikable. No whiny Supergirl here. This is a Supergirl who's going through loss, facing loss, but also is doing it as a hero, doing it as a warrior, doing it from a point of strength. This is the same Supergirl that I could see being a part of the Amazons when what we saw in her training in the previous run. You know, she's got that strength at a core. I love seeing the Kryptonian history and the fact that she's got a respect for the Kryptonian lore and understands it in a way that Clark is never going to be able to, because he didn't live it the way she did for as long as she did. There's something I really like about her. That cover is just plain beautiful. I really am. This is a book that I could not be happier with in the relaunch, because I was very, very worried.
Oh, amen on that. And I do love the nuances and the differences they're showing us between Clark and Kara. And that was something that I was glad to see. And it's funny because I'm stumbling over what I want to say, because there is so much going on, because I am such a Superman fan. And I've never in the past really held her on the same levels that I've held on him. Now, I loved the previous Supergirl. I was like, man, this is a really cool hero. I was loving her growth and her, progression. But right out of the gate, this Supergirl is giving me something completely different. And that is something that I was kind of surprised by. I was expecting that I would enjoy it. I was expecting, because I do like the character. There's been some cool stuff going on, but right out of the gate, there's just this, moments behind her. And I love just the differences, because she did grow up on Krypton, because she has that culture, and she's got to get that, dealings with what is Earth, and dealing with this person who, was, she knew him only as a little baby. Well, now he's an adult, and now he's telling me, hey, your planet's destroyed. And it's just on top of boom, 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 one on top of another. And now she's dealing with these planet destroyers. I was just like, man, this is awesome. This is a kind of Superman family story I want. This is a really wonderful Kryptonian story with some really cool background and just some, bring it present with a slam. I'm loving this.
See, to me, one of the things I've always liked as a kid growing up about Krypton was this sense of wonder of Kryptonian technology. I love that they start, because here's the problem. Eventually technology advances to the point where sometimes your science fiction can't keep up with it. We've gone a little beyond it. This has gone back again and made like this VR training where she's got like this, this, I don't know if you call them energy, gauntlets on or whatever she's got going on for her training. I love seeing that sequence, how she's battling a robot. These are things we can't do. You know what I mean? And, that's something I love, that there's the personality there and that her father's involved in that training. I want to see more development of their relationship. This is stuff to me. What's rich about the Superman family is not just their present day stories. I always loved with Clark seeing the stories with his dad, Pa Kent on the farm and that type of stuff. With Supergirl, this is go back to Argo. Show us why did this matter so much to her that this was destroyed? Make it matter to us as well. This was really critical in these sequences. She's a scientist, not a fighter, but she is. And there's that duality of what the wife wants and what dad wants, which I think is true in any upbringing of a child. Sometimes it's a little bit more in your face, like it is in this case. Other times it's more subtle. But I loved seeing that brought out here because it felt very natural in the development. Then we're back to I failed. What a great sequence of events there.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's funny because you sit there and when they're doing the throwing back to Krypton, when they're doing the flashbacks, when they're pulling all this stuff forward, it's something that just, there's this coolness behind it. There's this funness behind it. But we then go right back to this destruction, this death, this pure, just you go from this wonderful, happy place to what it is now. It's falling out of orbit. It's going into the sun. Everything that she ever knew is about to be destroyed in a blink of an eye. And I love seeing just the contrast going from the bright colors, the orange sky, the little robot dude that she's combating, to boom, to this present day, she's stuck to the wall like a pincushion. I was just like, wow, that was the contrast from bright to dismal. And then when they bring the father back into the picture, whether he's actually there, whether it's in her mind, whether there's some other energy, he's channeling the force somehow. I don't know if he was actually there or if it was all in her mind. I don't care. I loved seeing it. It was just that really great, true love, pure love never dies. And that's the love that the father has for the daughter. That's the love she has for her father. And it's able to, she's able to pull her strength up and actually pull it out. I ate that up.
I think it was also part of her subconscious giving her an opportunity to move on, saying that there is a reason to move forward. Life does not have to end here on Argo. You can find a new home. You can find a new future. It was her, because your mind a lot of times will try to repair itself, will try to heal itself, will try to survive. And, you hear all the time stories about that where, your mind will tell you what it needs to. And I love seeing this because I feel this was in her head. And I really feel that this was, her own self-conscious channeling the lessons that her family taught her. That's that belief that, people live on inside you and through you. And I think that's what was going on there more than anything else. Because I really do. I mean, we see in that sequence, she pulls that out herself. Yeah. That wasn't really her dad helping her pull out. The other hand was her other hand going up there to help pull it out. That was what, she was seeing in her image. And, it was really her own defiance. Because I go back to, it looked like she was giving up in the earlier panel, but then she found the strength through channeling her parents and channeling, what happened to them and what they meant to her. And that added more to that sequence to me, that belief.
Yeah. Well, it's gut check. It's that whole, when the hero's down, you constantly fight to get back up. Why do we follow Master Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. It's that mindset that a hero needs to have. And I love seeing that in her again. It's, and I know the parents weren't actually there. I agree with you. That was her subconscious, but just the concept behind it, where she's like, I'm dreaming. And he's like, perhaps, or, we're here, or if it's our love. And it was just that whole kind of this dialogue that she's having with this probable figment of her imagination, there still was that doubt in my mind. There still is that maybe he's still around. Maybe there's something we don't know about Kryptonians. Maybe there's something about Kara that we don't know that she's able to channel that residual energy. I love that little just suspension of disbelief.
This is another one where having a different costume has been important to me. I didn't like the costume at all at first, especially what they did, with the pants and all that type of stuff with it, because I really, really adored Kara. And I keep referring back to the Sterling Gates Jamal Igo run because it's the most recent run that I really felt was definitive, created a character. I felt that was the Superman book when they were on that book. I felt consistently month in, month out, it was the best of Superman. And which you're saying that about Supergirl, but I'm being honest. That was my feeling. That was my go-to Superman book first. And I think now, like, when we see that sequence with Argo falling, and her, it's like that bittersweet of her watching this happen, and you can see the tears forming in her eyes. It's really a beautiful moment. I love, like, the costume there. I'm like, very similar to what I said about Superman's costume when we saw Nicola Scott's drawings of what she did with it, with George Perez, how they did that so well together. This sequence right here is the one that really, I'm like, I'm starting to really dig this costume.
Yeah.
And it was really that sequence because it's very, very beautiful. But it's not just the splash. It's the dialogue, everything going with it, kind of going on this journey with her. I'm like, okay, I'm accepting this as a new Supergirl. This is her story. And the past is still there. That is something that happened pre-Flashpoint. This is something that's happening post-Flashpoint. This is a new person. It's a different continuity. I'm into that.
Yeah, I'm definitely solid behind this. And I still enjoy Superman. I still got to give Superman just the little nod over her. But she is up there solid with him, and she is a really solid member of the Superman family, and I'm equally curious about where she's going to go as I am where Superman's going to go. Just because there's so many different things they can do with her. And I want to see her, continual interaction with humans, with heroes. I want to see where all this is going to play out, because we really, at the end of this issue, she really steps up as a human, as a hero, a champion of Earth. We really see that moments where she's sitting there, she's watching Argo fall into the sun. She's like, I only got one place to go now. She only has one home now. Earth is now her home, and she is going to be a champion. She's going to be defended against, the planet killers and any other evil that's going to strike. And I love seeing just that kind of resolve within her. And again, it's a cool ending to this opening. Well, not the ending yet, but it's leading to the ending of the story arc where you really see her kind of become a little bit more comfortable with where she is and who she is and the role she's going to play on Earth.
One of the things that I want to touch on, too, I don't really compare very often Supergirl with Superman. I think why in the Gates and Igo run, I think I compared so much is because there was a decent amount of crossing over storytelling-wise going on at that time. So I think you couldn't help but compare the books because they were so interconnected. One of the things I really like about this Supergirl and Superman relationship in this is I think she's so different than him. Yeah, there's, the power set's very similar. I know it still seems like she's a little bit in some ways more powerful, just from the hints that are going on in this. But Superman is still clearly Superman in his book. There's a very different connection with the two of them. I really like that remains one of the things I liked about what Gates and Igo did. She's very distinctive, very unique. Mm-hmm. And I love this World Killers thing that's going on. I love the way that they separated, like, why wouldn't Superman be there? Well, we showed you why he wouldn't be there. Yeah. We had some great moments where we got to see her step up and really, show that she is here to kick some butt, to kick her off the world. She's not going to let them take over. This is her adoptive world. And, to the point where the humans don't know who she is. They don't know whether or not. I think we're going to rally behind the new one.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a funny scene. It's like, oh, great, now there's two of them. I don't know. I think I like the new girl better. And again, she has the big S on her chest. So if you trust Superman, you're going to start leaning towards trusting her.
But they don't.
Yeah.
This is a world that doesn't immediately trust hero. That's what I'm saying. It's not that cut and dry. It's not that clean. Because if you start saying they instantly trust because of the S, this isn't that world anymore.
Right. Yeah, I know. But I'm like, she's got a little bit of an advantage than this other creature who's, destroying police cars and attacking tanks and, being a little bit on the violent side. So I like the fact that there was the person there who was able to say, hey, I think I trust this one a little bit better.
But it wasn't because of the S. Because where there's nothing distinctive saying there, oh, great, now there's two of them. Actually, they were linking her with Rain.
Right.
Before that they were linking her with Superman.
Right. Yeah,
and I'm not like, I think down the road there's going to be an element where they say, okay, I guess I would actually love to see how they view the S, because I want to see what the viewpoint is to what you're saying. I'm not disputing. I guess what I'm saying is I don't think we know in this world yet how the S is viewed. I guess it's something I'm finding refreshing. Like, I want to know. How far have they gotten? And I think we're dealing with a world. Remember, we're dealing with a world where it's been 5 years since Superman's been introduced. So how much trust is there in 5 years for Superman versus years and years and years of what we'd seen with him before?
Right.
So I don't know that it's that cut and dry and clean. I want to see. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're 100% correct, and the S gave her a little nod. But I don't know from that dialogue. The one guy sitting there, there's two of them. That's clearly not saying, hey, there's somebody with an S here. Maybe they're linked with Superman. That wasn't the dialogue. And I think in the previous pre-Flashpoint universe, what you're saying is exactly what would have been true. It would have been immediately that. I like the fact that this is a world where that's not a foregone conclusion yet. Maybe for the guy who says, I think I like the new girl better, that might be his justification. We don't know yet. So I'm not totally, I don't want to make it seem like I'm throwing you under the bus and totally disputing you. I just don't know that. Yeah, I just don't know.
I tripped over my tongue. I was trying to say exactly what you're saying, and I tripped over my tongue because what I was saying in my head was, in the past, they would see it, and then here I was everything you're saying I was trying to say, but I stumbled on the word. So I'm not arguing with you. I'm agreeing with you, and if I had been a little bit more eloquent, it would have come out on the first try.
Well, but I don't know that necessarily your stumble's such a bad thing. I think that there's a lot of possibilities on how people are viewing the S, which is interesting. I want to get to know that. I'm finding this world and learning to know it. Something that's intriguing me, which is I was really worried because there's that other possibility whenever you do something like this, and this was the risk factor in the New 52, especially with the Superman world. You don't say this as much with Batman because even though they've made changes to things like Catwoman and his relationship with her and stuff like that, there's so much of the core Batman storytelling from the past that's clearly still canon. So you haven't taken him and totally rebooted him. The Superman world's been completely rebooted. Yes, certain stories did happen in the 5 years, but they're doing an origin with him now. This world that, really seems to fear aliens and metas in general would affect him a lot more so than Batman, who was always kind of mistrusted because of the fact that he hid to the shadows anyway. So it kind of fits his MO regardless. Green Lantern's pretty much so untouched, too. Out of the big books like that, even Wonder Woman, I would argue, still feels Wonder Woman. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the Superman world really has been fully rebooted. From Superboy to Supergirl to Superman. A bigger risk there.
Yeah, because it is Superman. This is the guy, and they're changing the world. And we had some really cool stories that I don't think happen anymore. Well, we know the new Krypton story arc couldn't have happened because this is the intro of Kara, and she was such a huge part of that. It makes me wonder whether Zod's been introduced to this world yet, whether... Well,
her parents are already dead, too.
Right.
So that negates that as well, because they were a part of that new Krypton story. Such a pivotal part. Remember, Dad died there.
Yeah. And again, they even said that he did die, so the Doomsday story happened, but how did Doomsday, where are the tweaks, where are the changes to it? What's the little differences between that? And it's funny because one of the things I was thinking is, I'm thinking Doomsday is one of these planet killers. He is one of, because that last scene of this book where she's like, you're not the only one, you're not the only Kryptonian that survived. Boom, and the the other two show up. I'm wondering if Doomsday is part of this group, part of whatever the mystery behind these creatures. That's Doomsday as well.
I don't know. I think what's interesting about the Doomsday storyline and what I'd eventually like to know, how did Lois react to that? Because they don't have a relationship. So how did that go?
Yeah.
Because remember, to me, one of the most iconic moments of that whole thing was her clutching Superman's dead body. And that was his wife clutching his body.
Yeah.
Huge distinction there.
The other thing from that story that I really enjoyed was when after the funeral, when she calls Jonathan and Martha, and she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I haven't called you to now," and she's just completely frantic, and Jonathan just looks to Martha, "Okay, let's go. We got to go to Metropolis. Lois needs us." And that whole thing that played out with Jonathan Kent and with the heart attack and him coming back and everything that they played out with that, and just that emotional thing really was something that I was like, oh, that was another tug at the heartstring, and part of my enjoyment behind that whole story was just the aftermath and the after effects of it.
What heroes were a part of that battle?
Yeah.
Because that was the JLI who stood behind him, but the JLI just formed now.
Yeah.
So it's so many questions. Like, that's a story I'd actually like to see redone.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to read that. Because I think it's so changed that I'd love to see how they would do it now. So I don't know. It's an interesting little tidbit. I don't know. I'm Supergirl's very cool. It's a book, again, one of my worried books, and I'm really into her.
You know what? Something that just popped in my head as we're talking here, from Superboy number 6, when Kara and Superboy kind of have their little battle, and when she finds out he's a clone and she freaks out, and just all the horrific things that happened with the clones, and that whole story that we don't know exactly what happened. What if these creatures are the clones? What if these are the story that she's learning, and just the whole play out that her reaction in Superboy is from this?
I don't know. That could make sense too. I don't know. There's so many possibilities. See, I mean, that's part of what I'm into. Yeah. I like the mystery. There's an unfolding mystery here. There's a lot to the lore that we don't know. And that's something I'm finding really interesting and intriguing. I like lore. I like history. I like seeing it unfold. I like that these characters have a history. See, that's really important. That's what I like about continuity, is that the characters have a history. So there's still a continuity here. It's just a newer continuity. You know what I mean? There's new stories. Like, we're all on like the same playing field with this Supergirl. We don't know what her backstory is, all of it. We're finding it out gradually together. I'm enjoying that there's a back history to explore and to learn more about for all these characters. And that's fun. I don't know. That stuff I kind of dig. So I don't know. I've always been into the Kryptonian lore. That was my favorite issues as a kid, when I'd get like Superman books at a flea market, because that was mainly my exposure to Superman. I'd get like runs of like the classic Silver Age stuff. And straight on through the 70s. I did read in the 70s. It's funny. Superman was a title that I would get like back issues of. I did read the New Adventures of Supergirl when she had like the Olivia Newton-John bandana thing going on. I was into that. So I mean, I was into the original Supergirl way back in the day from like Adventure comics and stuff like that. I had issues of that from flea markets. And then I read that New Adventures of Supergirl run. I've always liked the character. And then when Peter David did that great Supergirl series, it wasn't Kara, it was Matrix.
Yeah. I
was very into that run. Straight on through, I read all those issues. I was a Peter David junkie. I still am. I like, his X Factor is terrific. But I'm a Peter David fan of his DC work. A lot of the stuff he did, Supergirl, no exception. And I loved the idea that Fallen Angel might have been Supergirl at some point, but that was something that I think was a hook to bring us readers from Supergirl over to Fallen Angel. I don't know. It's just a character who I've just got a rich history and a love for. And it's funny, just as strong as my love for Superman in very different ways.
Yeah. See, as a kid, I never would have picked up Supergirl. I never would have really embraced a female title, just because when I was younger, I was an idiot. I didn't look at the overall story. I looked, ooh, a girl. I don't want that. I don't want to, and it's just the whole worried that people would laugh at me, because I was reading a girl comic book or anything like that. I was avoiding, titles like that. And
See,
for me, it's kind of neat that some of my favorite titles are female based, female titles.
I loved female superhero characters as a kid. I loved Batgirl. Catwoman was a villain, but I always loved Catwoman from the 60s Batman show. But then there was things like on the Sid and Marty Krofft show, that Electra Woman and Dinah Girl. I loved that stuff because that was serialized, which always had me at a serialized story. Bionic Woman, because I was really into the $6 Million Man, so when they spun that off into Bionic Woman, I enjoyed that because I was a huge $6 Million Man fan. So Lindsay Wagner in that series was great. Wonder Woman, terrific show. I loved Linda Carter as Wonder Woman. It was just such a great program. So, that was stuff that just, as a kid, a lot of my foundations. So reading a Supergirl book, to me, I was very comfortable with that because I think there were so many cool female characters that I enjoyed in live action television as superhero roles growing up. And those ones that I stated were just some of my favorites. Great shows. Did you watch that Sid and Marty Krofft stuff growing up?
Oh, yeah.
I liked all of it. HR Puffin stuff and all that. That stuff was great.
I watched it and I did enjoy it. And the Electra Girl, and I liked that as well. But it was just something about, watching, those. To me, there was always a difference between, watching the Wonder Woman and reading the Wonder Woman comic. I never would have read a Wonder Woman comic, even though I enjoyed the Wonder Woman TV show. It was just something about it. And even like with the X-Men, when there was a period when Storm was the leader. And when she first became the leader, I had an issue with it, and I had been reading X-Men for a while. I was like, what's Storm? Come on. Cyclops is cooler. Wolverine's awesome. I didn't, really embrace her until, and I think she probably was the first female hero that I actually finally got behind, and I finally said, okay, there's some cool stuff going on here with Storm, especially because when she lost her powers and she was still able to maintain control of the team. And so that was probably the beginning of my, they're cool, but if they had launched off a Storm solo series, I wouldn't have picked it up, even though I was like, Storm's kind of cool in the X-Men.
Oh, man, when she had that mohawk and she was fighting Callisto and the Morlocks and all that stuff, I don't know. That stuff was just, you gotta love it. Claremont really wrote some really cool female characters back in the day on that book. That was just a terrific. Psylocke, Rogue, Kitty Pryde. These just, terrific characters that I still love to this day. There's a lot of good. And there's something different that you get. It just adds, because that's the real world. It's not all guys. I like girls.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm sure your wife is as well.
Yeah, but as characters, I always did. I guess I never really cared about the stigma. I guess I was very aware I was a geeky teen and, loved that stuff growing up. Since I was a little kid. And a lot of that stuff, like X-Men, I had as a subscription. So I was getting every month, the changeover from Cyclops to Storm, I was reading monthly. I remember rooting for Cyclops when the two of them dueled it out. But then when Storm won, it was like, wow. Because he came back after Storm had already become leader to try and reclaim the role. And that battle between the two of them, I don't know, it's just stuff like that. I think there's been a lot of strong female characters. So picking up, like I said, a Supergirl book was... And then Teen Titans, had... the Wolfman and Perez run, which mirrors so much of what was cool about X-Men during that time. You had Starfire, Raven, Donna Troy. Donna Troy led the team for a while, which was, very much mirror images of what was going on over there. But always very strong females in that series as well. It's the stuff with Tara. She was a very strong female in the wrong way. Whoops. I don't know. I just... those runs, I think, really quickly took away my stigma as far as what the role was of a female character in comics. I think the history of comics has been featured with a lot stronger females than I think comics are often given credit for. I think those characters are ones that have fans who have a lot of passion for them. And, not because and it's not always cheesecakey stuff, it really isn't. These were strong characters like Storm. You got a girl who's like doing the mohawk thing on her head and then beating up people in tunnels. You're not thinking like cheesecake. You're thinking, if I'm going into battle, I'm behind her because she's going to kick more. She had no powers.
And she's still throwing down. Yeah.
You love that. I mean, that was great stuff. So I don't know. I mean, that was, and Psylocke was one when she went all ninja and stuff. I thought it was for the better of the character. Did you read all that when she turned?
Oh, yeah. I was throughout that.
So just good stuff. The Dazzler, another character. I always liked Dazzler. She was another one who benefited from joining the X-Men team.
I don't really remember too much with her.
Did you read the stuff where Wolverine was crucified and like Longshot was on the team and Havoc? And did you read any of that stuff?
No.
I think they were in Australia, if I remember. It's been years since I've read that. I think that's where they were. That was Jubilee. That was like the early appearances of Jubilee were during that era. And that was actually her first appearance was during that time. Wolverine got separated from the team and came across her. We're really heading off on a tangent here, but it came from the whole female.
We're heading off on a Marvel tangent.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to. It'd be great if there's some point in time we could discuss stuff like that because, such fond memories of stuff like that. Jubilee was another strong female character.
Yeah.
That I always really liked. And I don't know, there's some really interesting characters in comics. I don't know. Kind of team books are funny. They tend to be the ones, and you and I seem to have a lot of the same experience, were the ones that really, when you had these female characters have prominent roles and take over the team, and you had these characters, these male characters that you respected so much, that were following these female leaders and were somehow doing these cooler things that you'd never seen them before because this leader so better understood how to utilize them. I think that, helped me as a kid really get over the hump, and I think there's a lot of strong messages in comics for characters like that. Not just females. I think just different characters across the board. X-Men was a great comic, for example, in people's differences. I think for me, I grew up as a geeky teen. When I was a kid in high school, not in high school, even elementary school, especially, towards like 7th and 8th grade and stuff, I didn't have a ton of friends. I always had a very small group of friends because I was geeky. I still am. It was books like that you'd latch onto, and you'd see these mutants going through horrible hardships and still making it through, that you couldn't help but find inspiration from them, and it was all because of differences. And I think it helps open your mind to, I think, seeing the world the way it should be. I don't know, comics, throughout my life, it's why I still love this stuff to this day. I think there's a lot of powerful messages in subtext in comics that I think are really important to read into about tolerance and differences and it's just, I don't know, it's fun. And like I said, crazy tangent to go off of, but we let off it because of cool female characters. And Supergirl really let off of that. This came off of the fact that you said that you were younger. What was it when you were younger? Was it the fact that you were afraid other people would know you were reading the female character? Or was it really just that you couldn't see yourself doing it? Or there's not a right or wrong answer there. I'm just really curious because there's a lot, I think there's validity to both answers.
It was pure people would know I was reading it. I hid how much comics I read, and I tried to keep that, on a, kind of private and quiet, and I didn't tell people, oh yeah, I read comics, and because I didn't want people to think I was even weirder than what they already thought I was. As a kid, I was the weird kid in the classroom that, people were like, okay, and I had, like you, I had a small circle of friends, of people that, I was friends with, and that were and it was a very close, tighter knit group, and comics was something I kept quiet, and so I really didn't want. I was worried people would laugh even worse or more if they found out I was reading a female book.
Oh yeah, it was comics were always a nerdy hobby.
Yeah,
I mean that was really what they are. At the time, that was before the graphic novels. Where Vertigo, because Vertigo made it cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff like, Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that made it kind of trendy and cool and stuff like that. You know what it did? It made it cool for a lot of the people who read comics but picked on people for reading comics.
Yeah.
It made it cool for them to admit that they read comics, so it made it a little bit more acceptable. Nowadays I do think that there's I think there's still that stigma there for some people, that they're too highbrow. But those are really at this point clearly people who've never read comics.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more acceptable to admit that you read comics. I think the conventions are full of people who read comics now. I think it is something that is becoming gradually more mainstream with the films and the movies and things like that. But people could be brutal. What a bizarre tangent. Let's go on to our next book.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
And our last book will be Wonder Woman #6. The writer is Brian Azzarello. Pencils by Tony Atkins, with Atkins and Dan Green on inks. Matthew Wilson is the color. Jerry K. Fletcher is letters. Cliff Chang on the cover art. Chris Conroy, associate editor. And Matt Idelson, editor. And Wonder Woman, of course, was created by William Moulton Marston.
This has been such a cool book, because this was another one, like you, I think we were both worried about this one, because we were so much liking the Wonder Woman that we were getting. And, we talked about this, again, on our most recent exploration of the New 52, just how much this kept the lore and the gods. I was really worried when I heard they were revamping the gods.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, is that going to get old fast? But I think what we're seeing here is them really going to the core of who the gods are, each individual god, what their MO is, and as they're revamping them, they're really developing them to their personality and to their style. And, I think when we see this bit with Poseidon,
yeah,
I mean, that stuff
big
is
frog.
just... But what I loved is, like, this whole bit with Mr. Lennox, there's a mystery to him. I don't know who he is, came from out of nowhere. But there's all these people that are banding together, all for the purpose of saying, okay, we've got all these gods that are vying for power. Zeus is vanished. We've got, right now, his wife hunting down Diana and any of the potential heirs for Zeus, for revenge. And it's really, what can we do to not only survive this, but to make sure that legacy of who we are sticks around as well. A lesser woman than Diana would have been crushed by this. Her whole world, I joke around about her being, the Gumby of the DC universe, but that's gone.
Yeah.
Or I guess she could still be made out of clay.
Nah, she wasn't. She's the daughter of a god, and right. When they said they were changing around, when they first announced who her father was going to be, I did wonder what the heck are they going to do with this. But you know what? I really like this. I'm really loving where it's going and how they're changing things around. The fact that they said that was originally her origin, but that was just a cover to protect her from Hera and to protect the mom from Hera. And I love seeing that, kind of play out. But this issue particularly really brought it home for me that I was really seeing solid the Wonder Woman I enjoyed. Because I was so worried that this was going to be just about the Amazon hack slash, beat up and, cripple and maim and kill all her enemy. This issue really showed me that that's not just what this Wonder Woman's about. Yeah, she can throw down. Yeah, she's a warrior, and she does kill, and she does, do what needs to be done. But there is still the cunning. There still is the intelligence. There is the planning, and just the overall coolness that we saw in Wonder Woman. We're still seeing that here, and I really was glad to see that we didn't lose the beyond the warrior. I do enjoy a good action story. I do enjoy a powerful Amazon warrior, but I was so excited to see her, the multiple factions that she was playing against each other, how she was it was the shell game. Where's the, which cup has the peanut under it, and boom, 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 surprise. I love seeing that, and it was a wonderful swerve.
There's got to be an intelligence to her.
Yes.
And I will honestly say, for anybody, if this is your first exposure to Wonder Woman, if this is the one where you're like, ooh, at the New 52, I'm going to get on board this. If you're digging this book 6 issues in, you're going to feel right at home with a lot of the best of the runs previously. Stuff by Gail Simone, George Perez, Mesner Loebs. I mean, stuff like that, which I'm probably butchering. I think I've always butchered his last name, but, I love that stuff. the whole Artemis storyline was just tremendous that he did back then. Eric Luke. I'm just not going to do it justice. There's been a lot of runs that are terrific of Wonder Woman. Feel free to start grabbing some trades and looking around the net and seeing what people recommend of Wonder Woman. This is a character who I think a lot of people miss because I think a lot of what in our previous segment, the stigma that was associated with, I think, for a guy reading Wonder Woman, I think a lot of people avoided the character and didn't really get to how cool she really is. And I think if you're digging this book now, I think you get it. You get what you should have been reading and why. And if you're into this lore and everything they're doing with her, with the gods and the duality of this character, nothing has been negated by this series. This is just a new explanation of who she is. But at her core, she's still Wonder Woman because she perseveres beyond that. People would be crushed over this.
Yeah,
she's not.
And again, there is a scramble fight style.
Yeah.
There is chaos in battle. There is chaos in war. And within this sequence we're seeing here, those opening couple pages where she's getting knocked around, smacked around, ripping that flagpole and gutting some, centaurs and just really just boom, 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 jumping back and forth and really doing everything beyond everything that you would need to do if you were Wonder Woman. And I love seeing that play out. I love seeing that action and adventure, but within the confines of, as you said, an intelligent Wonder Woman. You need to have the balance of the two. And this issue, we really got to see that balance.
Who is Lennox? He is somebody. It's too simple. I don't know what it. Part of me wondered at first. I'm like, is that Zeus?
That was my initial thought, that he was Zeus, but I don't think so.
I agree with you.
Part of me thinks he's kind of like the traditional golem. If you know the story behind the golems, that they're actually made out of clay or stone or they're a mystical creature that is charged with a task, whether it's guardian or temple guardian or killing something and I'm wondering if his task that he's charged with is the protection of her, and if that's part of who he is. And that's only reason why I was thinking that is because he's kind of made out of stone. And when she had couple of those comments, you're made out of stone, does it hurt? He's like, only to look at. And it's part of me was thinking maybe that's what he is, or he's something like that.
That would make sense. Dragon Age Origins, the game, had a really cool golem sequence in it, which was fun to follow. And I mean, it's something been out through lore, and that's just one of the most recent experiences I had with golems. And I really liked, I like this whole concept. So you're right, yeah, I quickly dismissed that, but there's part of me that was thinking that along the way in my journey, because I thought, is Zeus trying to go? It was once we saw him being stone. I'm with you. That was when I dismissed it too.
Yeah,
I love seeing her in the midst of a battle, taking things like the flagpole.
Yeah.
And using it as a weapon. I love seeing some of the viciousness, but not overdoing it. Sometimes there's things that are just better seen off camera. Like when she's under the car and we see it from her perspective, that's the better way to see it. Because you don't always need to see all that stuff. That was plenty.
Well, and you get the sequence afterwards where her arms are just covered up into her elbow in blood.
Right.
And you get the splash, then you see her, and boom. That was, again, you didn't need to show it. In my mind, I know exactly what happened, and it looked awesome. So this was plenty, and this was a right pacing for it, and a right styling to it. It didn't take it over the edge. It didn't make it edgy just to be edgy. You didn't need to see that in there. We already know what happened. I really liked this sequencing and this layout.
Yeah, I do too. It showed just enough. I think there's a certain point to that. And because you want it to be vicious, because I think you need to be able to respect that Diana can go to that level. But because it is a distinction, I think, between her and other characters. What do you think of the design of Hades with the candles on the head and the wax dripping down the face?
Well, you know what? I was a little thrown by it just because I'm so used to more of a Grim Reaper, phantom-y sort of Hades style. But again, I'm not going to knock it because I know that the gods don't just have one appearance. This is Hades' current choice for appearance. I know it's not locked in stone. Just like I know the giant frog-like sea creature is Poseidon, but that's not how he's going to appear every single time. So there's variations. There's going to be fluctuations in how they appear just because of the nature of the gods. This is all a game to them. This is, well, I'll do this today. Maybe I'll do something different tomorrow. And you can, mix things up with them. And so it was something that did have me going, Hades? Really? But as time went on, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's kind of there's a nice enough of a creepy, weird factor to this Hades that, okay, I could see this being Hades.
The power play with Hera, with that whole, you're going to be sharing a queen now and that kind of bit, was something that was really interesting because she's still there, Hera.
Yeah.
And she's still going to be a foil and a threat to Diana as the series goes on. And I like that. I like that there's a reason why there's that resentment. She has no reason to support Diana. She has no reason to want to side with Diana. If anything, the more successful Diana is, the more resentment it would breed in her because that is, again, the child of her husband that should never be in her eyes.
Yep.
That's a betrayal. It's a betrayal of her role, especially with her kind of forcing her into this position.
Yeah, and I tell you, that whole sequencing throughout this with the double cross and just the Bams kind of sticking it to Hera, I didn't see that coming. I really did not see that coming. I didn't know where she was going or what she was doing or how things were going to play out, but I really didn't see it. And that was something I really enjoyed, the fact that there was a complete surprise and shock to me. Especially just with everybody playing with, ripping the piece of Hades off, using, Hermes' staff to teleport her back to Hera while Hera wasn't there to protect it. That was a great play, and I was like, that's neat. And then as soon as it happened, I was like, man, that's neat, but there's going to be massive consequences to this. I really want to see those consequences. I really want to know where this is going to go.
I really liked the bit with Hera where and this is something I do want to touch on. I liked that when Diana was facing her down, it wasn't just about trapping Hera or, getting her out of that situation. It was calling Hera out and saying, you've already destroyed me. You can't destroy me more.
Yeah.
I am not going to let that stand, though. You aren't going to get away with this. Basically Diana was saying, which is vintage Diana, I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty tough thing to be saying, but a very Diana thing to do. Like, enough is enough. Enough with the games. You did your thing, and yeah, you destroyed my world, but there's something to pay for it. I thought that was really great.
Yeah, that was a cool moment, her standing up to the god like that. And that was just a really wonderful play out. And this was Diana. This was Wonder Woman. This is, the cool character that I really got to enjoy in the past. So again, I'm, by issue 6, I'm really into this character. I'm really into this title. This was another title that was a slow start for me, where I was like, yeah, it's some cool stuff going on, but it wasn't my Diana. It wasn't the Wonder Woman that I really enjoyed and the story elements I really liked. Well, now I'm seeing those story elements. Now I'm seeing that character that I really enjoyed. It's the defiance, it's the coolness, it's the action, it's the adventure. It's just, and then thinking off the page, because it's, what's going to happen here? Yes, Diana's people are already all dead. Hera already killed them off. But guess what? There's going to be other people in Diana's life. There's going to be other friends and loved ones. And is Hera going to go after them? How long will it take for Hera to figure out how to get her looking glass back? Or will she never be able to do that? And where is Zeus? What is going on with him? There's so many questions that I have off page for this title that I'm really excited for. This is quickly rose up through the stacks, and this is, again, I'm really glad one of the big 3, she is one of the big 3 to me. This is a character who is, on Batman and Superman's level.
See, to me, I'm to the point anymore where it's not just about the Trinity for me. And I think this is really one of the important things of the New 52. It's about trying to establish the Flash back into this place, to establish Green Lantern back into this place. Because growing up as a kid, I grew up with the Super Friends. So it wasn't just like, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. It was Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and then, as the time went on and we got to see Flash and Green Lantern running with them and stuff like that. I remember that Legends of the Superheroes thing, where it was this special where you got to see all the heroes teaming up, and Shazam was there and all that. To me, the more heroes that you had that were equals, they were all part of a big team. You know, and the idea of the Justice League to me was not about 3 people. It was about, like, just a whole bunch of, you know, Green Arrow was in that. I think that's really, really important to establish more and more characters to have that prominent role. Because that, to me, is more... I love the Trinity concept. I'm not knocking that. And I get what you're saying, and I'm with you on that. It's just, for me, I love the idea that there's more characters than just Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman that are getting spotlighted in this relaunch. I think there's something important to that. I put characters like Batgirl in that category. I mean, Nightwing. There's a lot of these characters that are in the high end category that I think are really an important part of what makes this whole universe. With this book with Diana, though, and what happens with Zola at the end, you never first of all, you don't strike a bargain with Hades without paying for it.
Yeah.
But you also don't make Hades look bad. Yeah. And look like a fool without paying for it. That was something that I thought was really rich and well developed.
Now, what was her bargain with Hades?
I don't know.
Okay, I was like, did I miss something? What? Yeah, and I couldn't remember it. And I was like,
the beginning?
Drnorge.
Is it the beginning? That whole thing with Hera, that they were going to rule, with Hera being the queen of both of for both of them, that they were going to share. Was that the bargain?
I don't think so.
I guess I don't know.
Because that was something that she threw out there, and it was never agreed upon by everybody. That was just a giant setup. I thought she has... Is there a separate bargain she has with Hades?
Yeah, because I think he felt like he was part of the game, and I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, because Poseidon went away laughing, thinking, oh, okay. He didn't think that was a real offer. He knew that what she did.
Hades is helping to present it. Like, if you look back at the sequence, I think it's that bargain. I really do think it's that bargain. And he looked at it as intriguing because it was playing with the gods, and for him, it served a purpose of giving him more power.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm with you. I'm not sure that I'm 100% behind that that's what it is. I was questioning that at the end, too. That's why I kind of have an answer, but I'm not 100% sold on it, too. I'm wishy-washy on it. Because I went back and looked, and that's all I could come up with. Like, there was nothing else. I looked back in the previous issues. There was nothing that seemed to predate that.
You know what? I think that is the proposal.
And I think he's like, well, no. You threw this proposal out there. I want it. This was the bargain we made. I played ball. I want that bargain. Mm-hmm. And that's all I can think of. Maybe we'll find out next issue. It's totally something else. Great book. I've been a huge Wonder Woman fan for quite some time. It's a character who I think more and more, it was like cemented. We talked about our love for the Gail Simone run, but and we liked what Straczynski did afterwards. Going on to this, I think this has kicked it back to 11 for me.
Yeah. The thing for next week is called Thrones. So maybe that was the bargain. Maybe that's what Hades wants. He wants that deal. He rules by night and Poseidon by day.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. We'll see what happens.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Hi, guys. This is Ed in Tallahassee, Florida. Just calling in to tell you guys what a great job doing the podcast and the fact that I really like the fact you guys do keep it positive. I'm a mid-30s professional guy into comic books, DC Universe stuff, and completely gave up almost totally on any type of online fandom until I found your podcast. It's great to have someone out there that's not so negative and that everything that comes out isn't the end of the world, but, it's okay. So, in fact, I was at a comic store today grabbing my normal weekly DC run. I was grabbing a copy of The Dark Knight number 6, David Finch's title. Was grabbing it, and the guy next to me looked at me and said, oh, can you believe that we're stuck with this comic? I mean, it's just awful. I can't even sleep at night when I read it. And I kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, hey, if you don't like it, then, by all means, if you can't sleep at night, man, don't read it. So I'm just glad you guys are keeping it positive and better for those of us that aren't on the lunatic fringe of comic fandom. Just want to put my thoughts in on iVampire number 6 and, quite frankly, the whole iVampire series. I think it's great. I think not just the plot, which is cool, but the penciling and the art is really different. I think it's really fun to see a character like Batman drawn by these guys that are writing more of the horror series. It's neat to see their interpretation of Batman. And hope we get to see a couple more DC guys in there. I'd love to see their interpretations of maybe a Wonder Woman or a Green Lantern. And I also like to say that I might be the only guy on the planet that is enjoying it, but I quite enjoy Batman the Dark Knight, the Finch title. I think the art is absolutely amazing, and I hope that comic has a long run. And I'm looking forward to Earth 2, and I'm looking forward to World's Finest and some of the new DC comics coming out. Sad that we have to lose, Hawk and Dove, OMAC, and some of those other comics that maybe weren't as popular with the fans, but I think were, quite entertaining anyway. So, hey, guys, keep up the great work. Keep it positive, and we're not all in the lunatic fringe out here. And glad to see someone keeping it positive, man. Keep up the great work. You guys have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.
It's funny when he talks about the Finch title. We talked about that. I don't know if we conveyed it right. I'm liking that book.
Yeah.
It just has this. It is a book, and he's touching on it here. It has this weird stigma about it. But I love the art. I'm loving the story. I love the whole White Rabbit thing, and I don't know, the most recent issue. I couldn't wait to read it.
Yeah, it's weird with me in that book. Whenever I think about the Bat titles, I always kind of put that, kind of near the bottom of my stack, saying, do we really need this title? And then as I'm reading it, every single time, I always smack myself in the head, say, Jim, why are you even thinking anything bad about it? This is a really cool Bat story. And then as soon as I'm done reading it, I got all the other titles going through. I got, stuff going on with Damien. I got the Court of Owls, and it's just all this other stuff is pulling my attention away from me. But that is a really cool Bat title. That's a really neat book.
One of the things I like about it is I like that the Bat titles aren't like forced crossovers. I like the Court of Owls crossover that's coming, that's going to be going through a lot of the related Bat titles, because it seems like all the creators that are involved in their individual books are into this whole thing, and they're going to be telling interesting and fun, cool variations on the Court of Owls stuff as it relates to their characters. But I like that there's going to be some Batman titles that aren't going to be a part of that. Did you get to read the most recent? Did you read issue 6, the Bane issue, yet?
I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, no.
It's a good issue. And it got Bane right. It's how I see Bane. So I won't say anything else other than that. And, I think it's a great book. I'm really digging it. It is one of those that I'm with you. It kind of puts it in a weird stigma place. And I don't know if it was because of, I think the first series had that sporadic release that was, and I think that has, I think because the book, when it was relaunched, has the same title, I think mentally it's put me in that place with it. But I will definitely say I'm enjoying it. I don't have trouble sleeping at night after reading it. Yeah. If anything, I sleep quite well after reading it. That's I agree with this point though. See, that to me that's a pretty big red flag that you should jump off that title.
Yeah.
I've never had that experience with a comic, but that's a sign that, what? First of all, if I read one issue of any comic title and it made me stay up nights, other than the fact that I was super excited. I remember when I went to that midnight sale for that Justice League #1 and Flashpoint, and the finale of that series, that midnight thing. I read both of those books multiple times that night. I couldn't sleep because I was excited. I've had that experience, but not for that reason where it was oh my gosh, this book was so horrifying. I would drop that. That would get me to drop a title.
Yes.
I would have no hesitation.
Losing sleep, nausea, stuff like that would cause me to drop a title.
Yeah, I what are you doing that? But here's the other things too. Have you ever had this urge, when you're at a comic shop, to go up and say, "Oh, you shouldn't read that"? I'm a big believer. To each their own. If somebody's enjoying something, I'm not going to go over there and go, okay, I'm going to go wreck this guy's day and tell him how stinky his book is that he's clearly picked. Yeah. If I'm in a comic shop and somebody's picking up an issue, they're reading that book and they're into it. That's my assumption. I really don't believe that the average comic fan is a drone that just collects it to have the collection. I don't believe that. I've never been a believer of that. I think people do collect for that reason, and they're very happy with the continuing of their numbering. I'm into that. I love seeing my numbers, and I love seeing, the longevity of having a series and stuff like that. But I really believe that the average comic fan, I think the average person who's listening right now, is really, they're picking up their titles because overall they really enjoy it. There might be a couple stinky titles here and there for them where they're like, oh, this book really dropped in quality. Fine. But I do think the average person especially if they're listening to this show, is really listening because and reads comics because they love comics. I mean, I don't think they're having this I can't sleep at night experience. I can't imagine being at a comic shop and going, "Oh, you're reading that?" I'm too busy picking up my own books.
Yeah, I don't. It's weird because for what we do, about how much we talk about comics. When I'm in the comic shop, I don't really talk too much, other than just the little passing bys, and occasionally when I'm at like the register, or if somebody's having a conversation, I may jump into it or something. But I'm not really that outspoken. I'm kind of quiet and shy when I'm in a comic shop. But I think the couple times I've talked to people, it's been about, they're picking up a book and it's something I'm not reading. Because there's been a lot of Marvel stuff I've talked to people about saying, hey, what's going on with that now? Especially when the whole Civil War thing happened and the post-Civil War. And that was the only time I was really talking to people about comics. I'm a bit bizarre. I'm a little shy.
But even that's from a positive standpoint of like trying to get more info and inform yourself. Like, do I want to pick that up? I'm interested in the story. What's going on with those characters? It's not. I don't have the time. I'm with you. It's like if somebody's picking up something that I'm not picking up, I want to know, like, is that worth reading? I don't feel this urge to, like, I'm not reading. And I think it comes from an issue of I know myself pretty well, and I'm not reading a whole bunch of stuff where I'm like, oh my God, this is hurting to read it. I really, it's funny. I think I come across on the show sometimes as not being able to drop stuff and things like that. I've had to many times in my life, due to budget, drop books. And it's not something I like. I think that's just it, though. It's always been an experience. I don't like doing it. I want to read more. It just can't. Right now I want to read more than I do. I've got a pull list right now where I'm really struggling each week to find the time to read everything that I'm pulling. That's my problem. Not, that I'm reading all these titles that I really. I don't sleep nights because I read so much.
Yeah.
And I'm liking what I'm reading. Wow, that's a really crazy comment. I can't imagine. Like, at a comic shop seems like the last place in the world that you would have that comment. It seems like it's wrong for that to be there. Like, there almost should have been lightning coming out of the sky and striking him down. You not fan. Wouldn't that be cool?
That's desecration in this holy temple.
Yeah, exactly. But then, like, the comic in the bag and board are still okay.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
The comic, like, gently floats to the ground and lands on his ashes or something. Like, and then the other guy who's taught, like, our friend who just called up would be like sitting there, Ed would be like, oh, I'm just gonna go out and pick up my books.
Yeah, okay.
Because you wouldn't you wouldn't leave, would you? You'd like have to still get your weekly pull list, right?
Oh yeah.
Then maybe you'd get help, maybe, or a dustbuster.
Here's the thing: if he's already a pile of ash, there ain't much help you can do other than make sure your books don't get dirty. It's,
you're
beyond. Pile of ash is a lot worse than like if someone got struck down and was hurt. If the guy was hurt, then I'd be like, hey, call 911. I'm going to go grab my books. I would at least tell them to call 911 first. But pile of ash, you're beyond 911. You're beyond that. It's, okay, get an urn.
Well, you know what? And I'm glad you brought this point up, though. Because idiot dust really does bring down the value of your book. Yeah. So, you almost got to jump away when that's happening.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to be kind of sooty. So it could possibly stain it. And especially if you get any of that grime on your hands.
Fingerprints.
Handle your books,
Fingerprints all over your book.
What?
Fingerprints all over your book.
Oh, God, yeah. Come on.
Yeah. So you almost have to get a second issue, one to read after getting idiot dust on yourself, and the other one just to protect.
Well, I usually put on my white gloves before I read, so I'm okay.
You have white gloves?
Of course, don't you?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Well, here's the funny part. I know you're joking about the white gloves. But then I'm thinking about, like, the idiot dust, and I'm like, well, the white gloves aren't such a bad idea.
Yeah. You know what? I do have, and I will fully admit, I'm going to throw myself under the bus.
Wait, you genuinely have white gloves?
Oh, no. But I do have a reading ritual that I go through.
Okay.
Where, if I'm coming in from outside, even though I I make sure I wash my hands and fully dry them before I know if I'm going to start reading. I will actually go through a ritual just to make sure that I don't have anything on my hands I didn't realize I'd have it. Because sometimes you can pick up an ink stain here or a little grime or something and not realize you have it, especially like if I'm reading right after eating or something. I really do a good scrubbing before I go upstairs, and I actually do look over my hands and go, okay, I'm cool. So I do have a little regiment that I do before reading. So white gloves aren't that far off for me.
See, I think for me, it's funny. I used to think I was keeping books near mint as a kid. I'm with you. I'm much more cautious with them now and things like that. I'm a lot more well aware of what near mint actually is. But it's funny, as a kid, even into teenage years in high school, I'm like, I'm keeping all my books near mint. I'm bagging and boarding them and doing all this. I'm like, realizing now I was bending back covers and stuff like that. It wasn't until I got older that I started realizing that, wait a minute, no, near mint is like, it's like you didn't open it. You used tweezers or something like that to read.
Yeah.
This is, near mint's a completely different category now. And you really understand like how to like take care of your books. And that's where I was like double buying certain things and stuff like that for the purpose of keeping one to slab and one to read. It was a very different look at collecting. I was never hard on my comics, but certainly the way I read them was not, I didn't have a ritual. I read them. And really read them to death when I was younger. So it's kind of funny, the rituals. But you come from the era a lot more where collecting was a lot more of the centerpiece. A lot of my reading was before, really there was a local comic shop. It was newsstand.
Yeah, and I'm not doing this because I want to keep it near mint. I know my books aren't near mint, but it's just for some reason, because I've sometimes spilled or I've made, I got a smudge on a book or something, and it just drives me nuts when I do something like that. Like, so I know it's more of a preemptive strike to future mess ups. Like I one time had a cut on my hand and didn't realize I had the cut, because it was kind of like in a groove, and I picked up a book and I got blood all over the book. I was like, and I was more worried about the blood on my book than the fact that I had blood coming from some part of my body and didn't realize there was blood. So it was, it's kind of one of those sort of, it's not, I don't want to ruin the value of the book. It's more of the, I can't believe I was so stupid to smudge this.
Oh, I want it nice for me.
Yeah.
Because I like rereading stuff. That's one of the things I like about digital. That's one of the advantages of it. But yet, then I love the smell of the paper comic, and there's an experience with that. So I like both. I mean, I really do consider myself like a hybrid person right now. I like there's aspects I like about digital. I love the digital exclusives they're doing. I love that they're doing comic shop exclusives. I'm hoping that digital does open up just different avenues of, just crazy nonsense that we get now. All kinds of new experimental things that can then be collected and put into comic shops and delivered in a new way. I don't know. I think there needs to be a lot of cross promotion between both markets for it, but you can't get more pristine than you get with the digital. But then you can't resell them, and there's not that sense of my collection's increasing in value, because it doesn't. It decreases after 3 days. Here's the question. If you bought a book for $2.99 and then they have a 99-cent sale of the entire run, do you get angry? Is your collection worth less? See, digital's a very different animal than the paper comic, because the paper comic, there is a sense of value and to it. So is digital ever going to replace paper? No, they're two different mentalities. They're two different approaches. You can collect both, but you collect them differently. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm throwing out a nonsense stuff, but go ahead. I'd love to hear what you say.
You know what? Part of me, I wouldn't get too upset about the drop down in price and all that, because of it being a different medium. If the paper comic was, dramatic price down, I would get a little upset, because I'm like, Yeah, because I am a bit of a cheap guy. I am, a little bit on the a little bit on the stingy side when it comes to money sometimes. And so I would look at that and I would say, "Oh, dang it! If I could have waited just, that week, I could have saved that." And then I would have looked at it. I could have bought more. Maybe if I could get them always at that price, maybe I can expand the pull list and get some of the Marvel titles or get some of these, get some of the IDW or some more of the Boom stuff, and so I would look at it that way. If so, there would be a level of upset, but it wouldn't be about the value of my comics decreasing, because I really don't look at these as an investment. I know, when the day comes that I sell some of these things, I'm not going to be, one of those guys who's a millionaire because he sold his comics. I'm going to be a guy who has, who can now go to McDonald's and get something to eat because he sold his comics. It's, my collection, though it is getting vast, it's not high price. It's not worth a lot of money. I got a couple comics that, maybe have some value to them, but they're nothing. I won't make the news when I sell it. So for me, it's not about value, but I would be more upset if I could have gotten it a little bit cheaper.
Goofy guy sells comics and goes to McDonald's is actually, I think you might make the news.
What? Maybe.
I'd be with you. I'd be like, we've been sitting there, I'm like, yeah, I'm having McDonald's. You know what? Here's a funny part, though. After we ate the Happy Meal or whatever it was that we got, we'd be like, wait a minute. We just sold our comics for this? Buyer's remorse.
Well, I do have a full double collection, so I would only be selling one of them.
Do you have a full, how vast is your double collection?
Actually, no, I'm joking with that one.
Okay, cool. I know you've double bought a lot of things.
Yeah, I've double bought a lot of stuff. The issue ones, for the new universe, I double bought, so I've got a full double on that. And I'll pick up different variant covers, or sometimes if I couldn't wait for my comics to come on Thursday and I had to pick them up on Wednesday, I've got doubles that way. But really, the only time I'm double buying is if I know I'm going to get something signed. I like having, if I know I'm going to say, for example, if I was planning on having Wonder Woman #6 signed, I would have bought a second Wonder Woman 6. So I have the signed version, and then I have the version that's in the collection.
It's funny, when Ed was talking about the positivity of the show, it really was my own experiences and your own experiences just with conversation in general. This is where we tend to go. I mean, it's not we've never had an edict on the show. We never hey, what can we talk positive about this week? It's never been that kind of discussion. It just doesn't go that way. This just happens. I mean, and really not just about comics. This is how we talk about film. This is how we talk about television. We tend to talk about things that we just were excited to talk about. I don't waste a lot of time on things that if I'm not enjoying it, I've moved on already. Mm-hmm. And I'm just kind of done. And I see time to me as a valuable commodity. I don't have a lot of it. None of us do. So I don't spend a whole lot of time, if there's something I'm not interested in, first of all, I usually don't end up watching it or reading it or getting involved with it to begin with because I'm not interested. And usually the things that I am interested, it might not be the top of the stack, kind of like blowing me away kind of thing, but I've at least found value in that time spent, which there's a distinction between that and some of the discussions we've had here today even. Not every title fits into that place. Not every book, not every television show, not every film fits into that place. But I've just pretty much so moved on. I'm like, it's something that I like for a film. Film is a great comparison. My favorite films are ones that I'll rewatch over and over and over again and never get sick of. Batman Begins, to me, this might be blasphemy. I enjoy Batman Begins more than The Dark Knight because I'm a Bruce fan. So I loved seeing his development. I love seeing his training, and I'm into all that stuff. I can watch that movie over and over again. There's times where I'll go to the sequence where he's fighting with Ra's al Ghul, or Ducard, Liam Neeson, on the ice. Yeah. And there's that real cool sequence where Liam Neeson's, your father was weak, that whole bit that he's going on. But when he picks up that sword, and he's sliding across the ice, and the two of them are having that sword fight, and it just, there was something so cool about that where, he gets Liam Neeson on the ropes, and the ice crumbles under him and all that. I don't know. I just love that training sequence. It was cool to see that the gauntlets had like a story behind them and a history, and I don't know. I get into that kind of stuff. That's the type of movie I can watch that over and over and over again. Back to the Future series, love that film series. I can watch that over and over again. There's a lot of I like Son-in-Law with Pauly Shore. I can watch that movie nonstop. There's a lot of movies. Comedies tend to be ones. A lot of times I'll watch them over and over again. But there's a few romantic films too that I really enjoy watching it over and over again with my wife. That's the kind of stuff that like geeks out. And if I want to talk, that's the kind of stuff I want to discuss. I want to geek out about those things. I could do a whole podcast on film. Or it'd be basically what we've got here with this show. Geeking out about film. That's just it. This show just happens to be about, DC Comics, so we happen to talk about the titles from DC that we love. But any podcast we would do outside of this, or in the future, or, in addition to this, I can't imagine. We have no time to do one in addition to this. But if we ever did a sequel to this show, it would be some other avenue, and it'd be this show again, just about something else. Kind of fun.
Hey guys, this is a short-time listener, first-time caller, Silicon Wolf on Twitter and hopefully on the comic forums. I was just calling. You were wondering about what to talk about in the upcoming episodes here, and thought, well, this would be a good time to call and talk about something. Comic that I really been enjoying is Red Hood and the Outlaws. I know, listening to your one-line things of it, you were kind of like, well, we don't dislike the book. It's the middle of the stack. We don't know how we feel about it and so forth. And, I can kind of understand where you're coming from on that. So I thought I'd just call in and talk a little bit about what I see on it, because it's one of my more favorite New 52s out there, if not really the favorite. One thing is that, I think the art of it is just really fantastic, and it really shows how much the artist can add to a title. I think the rough and very detailed style works very well for the book. It gives it a very, very specific feel to it. And, I'm always just amazed by the big landscapes and the vistas, like the 100 Acres of Awe and the Chamber of Awe and Starfire Ship and the islands and stuff like that. It just gives this just big, sprawling, epic feel to it. When dealing with all these ancient things and ancient mysteries, and it's just really, really nice. And then you look for the little details, like Dukra, she's having the little Hello Kitty hairpin. Finding those little things in the art just makes you want to spend just a great deal of time just looking at each panel and finding all the little things there. The only thing that I would say about, not necessarily the art, but kind of the layout, is sometimes I feel like there's like something missing. Like the first issue, you have Jason and Roy, they're in the Jeep, they're driving and talking about the tanks coming up and, what are we going to do about it? And then the next panel is there's Starfire above destroyed tanks. And I was like, wait, where was like the attack on the tanks? Where was she blasting it with her starbolts and stuff? So, I actually go by digital comics and stuff because I'm not really near a comic shop. So I was like, paging back on my little iPhone there, and like, did I miss it? Did I run past it like a page or something like that? But sometimes with the action stuff, I feel like, was there something missing? But overall, I think the art is really spot on and really works for the kind of the feel of the book and stuff. And one of the reasons why I really like this book is the strong characterization. When I think of, the top of my stack is like, the Batman, Batgirl, Catwoman, all of them are really strong with the characterization and bringing forward the characters. And, I see really a lot of that in this book. Jason Todd is like the big focus of the book, and we're seeing kind of more of him than anyone else. But I think everyone is sharing kind of a similar theme and character progression, and I think it's kind of really best brought out in issue number 5 when Dukra says that there will be a day when the light in his heart will outshine the dark fury within. And I think all of the characters are really coming from, a dark, defeated place in life, but now they're on a path to have their inner strength restored, coming forth in a glorious way, and we're along for the ride, and I really like that. Really, I wasn't really necessarily a fan of Jason Todd, and really didn't have much exposure to him as Red Hood when I picked it up for the first time. I do remember, back when I was reading comic books more regularly, when he was Robin and he was killed by the Joker. I remember voting that, in fact, he was killed by the Joker, so we can't feel too bad about that. Oops. But when he started being the Red Hood, when he came back from the dead, those kind of things, I didn't really know about, didn't really read about at the time. But, knowing that original story, I found it, a much more emotional tie to Jason and some of the things he's expressing about Batman and what's going on in his life. I was really moved by his cherished memory of Batman, where he's sitting there and Batman is taking the night off because Jason is sick and can't go out with him, and then throwing that away because then we see in another couple issues how much of his anger and what drives him is at coming back and Batman not avenging his death with the Joker, and I found that really compelling. Seeing how much he could truly love Batman, and then just knowing that Batman just, not necessarily let the Joker go, but really didn't push it any more than if Joker had stolen a purse or something like that. Feeling that the killer got away goes unpunished, and not feeling avenged in that way. And I see how that really deeply plays into his becoming an assassin, which really gives that aspect of him, a lot more gravity, a lot more weight to it. That he's not just a killer for hire. That's not what he's about. He is about the bringing of the justice. He's like an equalizer type character, bringing justice to those who can't. That kind of thing. And but still, that's still a rage, and it's eclipsing, and perhaps even preventing him from really reaching his true strength because he holds on to that so much. So he needs a way to kind of reclaim his own power, his own light that doesn't have to deal with that kind of issue in his life. Then switching over to Starfire, I personally was kind of taken aback by some of the controversy of Starfire. I really had kind of the opposite reaction that so many people had when she was portrayed, and just kind of surprised me and stuff. Starfire, the character, has always had a pretty dark and grim past and character history, sold into slavery as a child, medical experimentation. I mean, this is kind of ghastly, kind of, twisted stuff, and it's kind of ignored in a lot of ways. It's like, oh, well, it happened, but then, well, never mind about it. I felt finally she seemed to be given a bit of an edge, and this was a comic that would give her history and the gravity and importance that it would really deserve. I really felt this cemented in issue 3 when we saw her cherished memory. I remember in old Teen Titans that Starfire was talking to Robin about how the group sometimes found her bloodthirsty because she was from this warrior culture. And she found it strange that the rest of them were so quick to distrust friends. In that case, it was like Raven at the time, which is very common for Raven. But then they give mercy and the benefit of the doubt to enemies. She found that to be the backwards way of approaching things, that you should give just your absolute trust to your friends and not give mercy then to your enemies. And I can follow that kind of straightforward way of doing things. That your friends are important and you trust them without reservation. And when you fight, you fight without reservation. Sometimes I felt that over the years that mentality has kind of just been kind of like, well, it's written into the conversation, but it's not really dealt with in any real practical terms. So in issue 3, we have her cherished memory where an enemy shows her compassion, which if you take that idea of the warrior background and how you consider your enemies and your friends, that really would be the biggest insult ever. And being able to basically, fight back against that insult, I really felt her background was really being shown in a stark, brutal way. It was really being taken seriously. So I really like that. And I, talking about Starfire not having really deep attachments and so forth, recently in Comixology, the Countdown to Adventure was released, and so I was able to pick those up. And here you have Starfire. She's back from a year away in 52. She doesn't have her powers. She's at Animal Man's house. She finally wakes up, and they're like, oh, do you want to talk to your friends? Do you want to contact the Teen Titans? She's like, no, I'd rather just try to be on my own for a little bit, and never mind about even contacting them and tell them that she's alive or anything like that. So, there was plot there and so forth. I think sometimes, plot gets in the way of these things. We need her there for the story, so we're going to kind of gloss over this really quickly with just a few panels and a few things there and stuff. But, sometimes she is shown a tad cold about things. So I really wasn't bothered with her memories, a tad confusing, but obviously something's going on. Why she seems to have these flashes of memories. I was wondering if part of this was in the continuity. She was recently going through the, I think it's Knightfall, not sure if I'm saying that right, the Way of the Warrior, which had taken her memories away, but she sort of got them back. And she was back with the Teen Titans. Maybe in this case she didn't. So I think there really is a mystery of her memories, and I think people were taking that a little bit differently than what it was intended. And as she gets them back, I think maybe that's going to give us more insight into the current continuity. But I was thinking about something just as I was kind of writing down my notes for what I wanted to talk about. In issue 6, she said something about another time, and I was wondering if it wasn't related that somehow she was more affected by the shift to 52, that the change in timelines and so forth, something happened with her that either her memories didn't switch over or she was somewhat protected. I know Roy rattled off the Teen Titans, so it seems like she was there, but, how is she related to that? Maybe there's something more going on with the timeline shift that's coming up there. And just kind of quick, as a quick aside here, jumping over to Green Lanterns and the New Guardian. What about Tamlan and Otara over on the Orrery? Are they really just copies like Starfire is talking about? Orrery is normally a copy, but it's light size, so it's kind of hard to call that a copy. Are they the real thing? Might Starfire make an appearance there, fighting Invictus? Since he comes from the sun, so he's kind of, Soul Invictus, Invisible Sun kind of thing. So Starfire, because she's fueled by the sun, could she absorb some of his attacks or send it back at him, that kind of thing and so forth? That's kind of an interesting thing of whether or not there's a changeover coming up there. I haven't had a lot of things to say about Roy, simply because I haven't had much contact with, much exposure to his character. And when I have, it's pretty much been, he's just been, the brash, chip on the shoulder jerk and so forth. So I think it's really nice that he's being given a chance to possibly actually grow as a character and become his own character. Talking about that, something that kind of, I was wondering about where the whole thing was going was in issue 5 when Roy stopped Starfire from killing Crux. Now, reading the solicits, I know that what's planned with Crux, and I'm looking forward to that, but it seems strange out of character, kind of in the book, since no one seems to really care about killing in the book all of a sudden. And it would seem strange that Starfire would actually stop and entertain the idea, much less carry off Crux, and rather than leaving from the town folks, again, plot, dick. The fact that Roy's words actually meant something and stopped her seems to be that there's really is more between Roy and Starfire than maybe we realize or what's really being portrayed in the books. This seems to be another point where the comics kind of come up with a kind of a thinking moment. What I was thinking of is now with issue 6, that the group is sort of forming a student-mentor relationship between the characters, but more symmetrically than one side. Like Jason Todd was a student of Dukra, she was a mentor, and that's the way it was. She gave the knowledge to him. But now, each of the characters has some little bit of wisdom or knowledge. So Starfire provides something to Jason Todd, Roy provides something to Starfire, and we'll get the, stuff coming back. And so they're all able to basically bring themselves out of kind of this time in their life to an even better time in a dynamic relationship. Talking about Crux, I think he's an interesting addition to the team because it's a character eclipsed by darkness, need for vengeance. He's telling himself it's saving humanity from aliens because of the bad things that happened to him, tragedy in his life, Yet, now in a very physical way, he's given up the very humanity that he says he's protecting and saving to get that vengeance. So him laying in the snow, wondering why Roy is not on his side, I thought was actually very touching. And again, it's those little touching moments all through the comic that really makes me enjoy this comic quite a bit. And I see a lot of good possibilities in the comic book, dealing with vengeance, protecting others who may not want your protection, stereotypes, do you blame an entire group for the actions of the one, that kind of thing. I don't know what to say about issue 6. There was kind of a thing of, once we see issue 6, we'll see how Jason and Starfire got together and stuff. Jason seemed awfully chipper. I don't know why. Maybe it just was. And he doesn't seem to know Starfire, which is odd if she was in the Teen Titans, seems to be relatively famous, no relationship with Dick Grayson. She's kind of hard not to recognize, I would say. And Jason almost seems floored when seeing the Nightwing costume. Maybe that's just because, oh my gosh, he's been here, but it just seems strange. Maybe I'm not realizing how long Jason was in the dead and then off training, so he doesn't know what happened in the world. I don't know. And, all the controversy aside, I thought a lot of the little swimsuit Starfire pictures were awfully small and not nice big full-page spread things and stuff like that. But, side note. Anyways, one of the things is I think that causes this book to suffer sometimes. I think there's some knowledge of the approach DC is taking the New 52 needs to be understand to understand this book. The main one being how people of Earth relate to aliens. That there's a definite anti-alien, anti-outsider mentality going on. You see it in the other books, but here it makes a big difference, I think, especially with Starfire. Even in the old comic books, the anti-alien sentiment crept up, especially with the relationship with Dick Grayson possibly getting married. But now, with it being so blatant, how would that affect her? She says, the world has not shown her very many kindnesses. Would she gain the same bonds to humanity and humans and Earth as she did in the past? Probably not, since when Roy comes to it, she's, she mentions that, how nice it is that he did that when other humans have not shown her the same thing. I think that kind of thing makes a huge difference. I also wonder if there's a little schizophrenia in the comic book. When I was first reading it, it seemed to be kind of the two guys and a girl buddy movie, popcorn fun kind of thing. But then there's the all cast and the untitled, which is more Slay the Evil, kind of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer thing. But then we're dealing with the sensitive issues of stereotypes, prejudice, vengeance, and justice. So it's kind of hard to decide what it's really trying to do, and that's kind of why I like it, because it is doing these different aspects. But can it do it all, and can it do it well? Well, that's kind of one of the things we'll see. Anyways, like I said, this is one of my favorite titles. I love the exploration of the characters. I like the mystery. I like the strange ancient evils. I think it's a little different than other titles. It has great fun moments, thought-provoking scenes, and, you have to think about the implications of what's going on, and I think it has a depth that I really appreciate. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the title and whether you think I'm on track, or maybe I'm a little confused, or where you see the title going. And really enjoy the show, and thank you very much. Bye.
I love calls like this. First of all, because he totally gets the theme of the show and everything. It's funny. I love the fact that he's got this insane passion for the book. When I say insane, it's you listen to the show. This is all we do is insane rants. I love that. I mean, it's infectious. So I was captivated listening to his rant, because it's a title I've had an interesting experience with, and I think the funny part is he doesn't have the history with Roy that I think you and I both do. I know you do from Outsiders. I do for years beforehand when he was Speedy. We saw that progression from Roy that he's enjoying seeing now in the book, which I agree with him. The progression's there. It's fun to actually watch the growth of Roy, and I'm geeking out at that this isn't a downer book. It's taking people that were down and out and gradually building them up, which is what I'm enjoying about it. But where are you at on the title?
You know what? Issue 6 was a turning point for me. Because before, when we did our DCU in one lines, I did that before reading issue 6. And so I really was kind of approaching it not having read this issue. And I was kind of in a place where I'm I don't know what I feel about it. Well, 6 was a really good linchpin for me. It was a really good, moment, going forward. When we first started talking about this, we're like, okay, 2 out of the 3 characters, I felt okay. They had a pretty good handle on. They knew the character and they were behind it. It was always Starfire. I was like, what's going on with her? Well, here you really see a cool version of her, and you really get an understanding of where the whole connection between them. And this, for me, was a great Starfire moment, a great Starfire issue. Even though Jason was the main character, this was Jason's meeting with her. But for me, this gave a good background, a good understanding of who she was and where things were going. So I can say I'm honestly a fan of this title now. This is now a book that I'm like, okay, I want to see where this goes. This creative team has a good understanding and a good grasp of the characters, and I want to see where this plays out and what happens going down. Where's what other developments, what other changes are going to happen to them.
It was funny for me. I think for me the issue was always Starfire and Roy, the portrayals of them and wanting to know where it was going to go. And that was hard to do with the first issue of this because, you've put Starfire especially in a place with the memory issue. The memory thing, I agree with him. There's more to that story. It's coming up too much.
Yeah.
There's something more to be told. There's some reason why that's happening. She remembers clearly more than we've seen. The relationship with Dick Grayson is something very strong for her, and I love that Jason finally laid out what his real relationship is with Dick Grayson and what really happened there, and how dark that got for him. How the relationship was always strained, because that was true to their history anyway. I'm talking about before he was returned. That strained relationship was always something that was there. He was a bit of a putz. It was the reason why, people were happy. There was a lot of people happy to vote him off the island. But the voting was close, as Starlin pointed out. So, I don't know. It's an interesting kind of relationship there. It's funny. Before, Judd Winnick was always the guy that I thought understood how to write the returned Jason. I honestly think that the Jason in this book has been, to me, one of the most solid characters. As far as this has been the Jason that I've liked since his return, if that makes sense. He's the same one that prior to the New 52 was the one that, like, okay, this is what I'm finding interesting about the guy, because you do see a little light in the darkness. And that's something that I think we're seeing even more in this series, which I do want to see more of with him.
Yeah,
I want to see the kid that was Robin in there somewhere too, while keeping the Red Hood there, because you got to have a little of that edge.
I do like the edge, and I do like how Jason's being portrayed here.
Yeah,
this is a character that I thought was a solid character even in issue 1. I was comfortable with where they were going with him and how they were portraying him from the very beginning of this. So. Yeah, this is definitely a good title. And with the whole Teen Titans thing, they've never flat out said that the group was Teen Titans. And I thought it was at New York, and I believe it was Bobby Chase, I think, who said that there hasn't been a Teen Titans. That the Teen Titans we are seeing right now with Tim Drake and everything is the first iteration of Titans. But I'm not 100% certain on that.
Okay. And, well, I mean, the way it looks like the three of them were running around together, which would actually echo a lot of what she's remembering. Running around with Roy, running around with Dick Grayson. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what that relationship was or what she ends up remembering. And like you said, are these echoes of what went on pre-Flashpoint? I don't think so. Because I think they've made it pretty clear they're trying not to have that kind of connection to the pre-Flashpoint universe. So I think there's a hook to her memory. And I'm interested in that. That's something that the more that's become prominent, the more I'm like, okay, there's something going on with her. These moments with her and Jason in issue 6, though, are very true to Starfire. There is that, like, rough warrior Tamaranian that we see there, but there is also that soft side that you see with her, too, and that's the person that Dick Grayson fell in love with as well. So I'm glad that, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to really see Starfire here. And like he said, it's a reaction to this world and how cruel this world would be to someone like her. And that's something I'm enjoying, too, because that's fitting more to this story. What happened to her that put her in this place? I don't know. Like, he made that interesting point about what was going on with in the New Guardians with Tamaran showing up.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Is that really them? Are they clones? What's going on? I don't know. And how will she react to that? That's something I think we can wait and see that down the road. I don't think we need to see that quite yet. But I'm with him. I want to see that story. If they stick around and if that winds up being the case, there's room for that story. This offers the option to bring in, like, her sister.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm with you that the book's growing on me more and more. It's a fun read. He's right. It's a fun read, and it's certainly not. It's never a book that's been on the chopping block for me.
Yeah.
The first issue was a shock. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm just agreeing with you there, because it's never been something I would have thought of cutting, but it was never anything I was really passionate about. Hearing him go on, you hear that passion in his voice. I never had that passion for the title. Now, I'm still not as locked in on as I am with other titles, but this is a solid, good read. This is something that I enjoy, and this is a book that I consider and say, this is a good title. I consider this a good book, and I consider this an interesting book, and I am thinking off-page with this. I am thinking future, where this is going to go. And the art sentiments he had, I got to completely agree on that. That's something, especially that this issue 6, that the whole her spaceship sequence. Oh,
Kenneth Rocafort.
That was awesome.
Kenneth Rocafort on the art, and it's very nice art. I agree. I'm enjoying the series. I'm not in the place he's in yet. I see the potential, though. I really do. I actually really like that he has this deep passion for it, because that's one of the things that I liked about the New 52 when they launched is how different the titles are. I think there's something for everybody. And I'm hoping that there's titles like this across the board that are ones that I'm kind of like, oh, it's a middle of the stack read for me, which, I mean, by no means it's a bad title. I'm enjoying it. It's not one that I'm not digging. Middle of the stack means it's in the stack. I'm not saying it's bottom of the stack. Bottom of the stack means that, like, I'm really waiting to get to that. I have nothing right now in the bottom of the stack category. There's nothing that's really in that place where I'm like, if this one kind of dropped off, I wouldn't lose any sleep. I've got nothing in that place, which I'm thrilled about. Everything's kind of either I'm gaga over it or it's middle of the stack. It's kind of a enjoyable read that I'm just kind of digging. And this is one of those books that are in that place still. I love that, though. I love that, we can be in different places on these titles. And I think there's a validity to it. So I don't know. I'm glad that he called in with this one.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
Want to remind everyone about our upcoming 300th episode 6-year anniversary contest. We've actually only got a few more days left. In March, we are celebrating 6 years of the show in our 300th episode. We have partnered with DiscountPartySupplies.com. That's DiscountPartySupplies.com, one word, to offer a special celebration package. To enter 300 shows in 6 years of big happening for us, we want you to show your creativity and your sense of humor. Choose from any of the themes, 300, 6 years, our anniversary. You can draw, record, write what your favorite hero or villain would do to celebrate or even ruin our anniversary. Jim, we've gotten a lot of great entries. So there's stuff coming up that you haven't even seen yet that are going to be popping up on the website over this week.
Cool.
There's a parody of any of the show's episodes. We actually got a comic book from one of our listeners. Themes or topics. This can include but is not limited to making your own spoiler warnings, show intros, etc. Create bullets for in between the show segments. Create an article or review of a favorite book or topic that you want to shout out, or that we covered so far that you wish we had or will down the road. Or any other creative way you want to celebrate or have fun with our upcoming anniversary. We want this open-ended so anyone can enter. You can enter as many times as you want before the end of February, so you're in literally the last couple of days of this. First prize, trade paperback from the winner's choice from InStockTrades.com. A Green Lantern Party Package from Discount Party Supplies. This package includes table covers, balloons, a set of Green Lantern glow-in-the-dark rings, stickers, green and black streamers, a package of black and green balloons, 8 Green Lantern invitations, plates, napkins, Green Lantern cups, Green Lantern blowouts, 24 candles, and plastic cutlery. Second and third prize will be a choice from our listener and show donated comic and trade prize bag. We'll actually be announcing the winner on our next episode. If you still want to enter, please send an email to ragingbullets@gmail.com with the heading 300th contest. Recorded entries can be sent via email or via our show voicemail line. Just make sure to denote 300th contest. 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype is our show voicemail line. Feel free to call in for the contest or, of course, for anything else that you want to shout out on the show. But we want to once again thank DiscountPartySupplies.com for that amazing prize package. Jim, our next episode, Justice League Doom. How excited are you for that?
I'm actually kind of pumped on this one.
So we'll be talking about that next week. And, of course, any listener voicemails or things like that, and we'll pick our winner. So we will see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Are closing in, be they Thanon Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you